Chapter 616. And Lin was in complete despair at this moment. If he didn't unleash his origin energy of the netherworld, he really wouldn't be able to harm Emperor Ziwei. If he couldn't even harm Emperor Ziwei's body, how was he supposed to grind him into the ground? How about he did what he did to Xing Tian? He could use his thick skin to tire him out and tire him to death? Back when he was struck by the galactic immortal palm, he really did feel like he was going to die. However, he was also astonished by how thick his skin was. He was able to survive Emperor Ziwei's palm, and he had survived it in one piece. So this plan seemed to be working. A relentless barrage of attacks tore at his body, making him writhe in excruciating agony, and Lin howled in pain. It should work, but it was just too painful. The attacks suddenly stopped. And Lin thought that Emperor Ziwei was taking a breather, so he raised his head to look up. F***CK. He's charging up his trump card again. A rainbow spear appeared in Emperor Ziwei's hand. Countless golden symbols flashed past his eyes as an extremely fearsome sharpness converged on the spear. The rainbow light illuminated the spear, making it appear extremely beautiful. However, Lin could see the scenes of two worlds being destroyed within the spear. This was a spell technique imbued with the terrifying power of destruction. This technique is known as the Tao-shattering spear. When I unleashed it at the height of my powers, it could pierce through two worlds and shatter countless Taos. Emperor Ziwei's expression was calm, but his hand trembled uncontrollably, as if he was unable to control this power. The celestial Darch drew a sharp intake of breath as he flew toward the 99-level immortal Spirit Pagoda. Has Emperor Ziwei gone insane? How could he use something like this? Isn't he afraid that he'll kill everyone? A faint voice drifted over, as if sensing the celestial Thearcha's arrival. Don't worry, and Lin isn't as weak as you think he is. Emperor Ziwei adopted a throwing stance as he spoke in an indifferent voice. Be careful! At this moment, the heavens and earth were like a cage, and Lin felt an irresistible force that made it impossible for him to escape. At the same time, a premonition of death that was even more intense than the galaxy immortal palm spread through his entire body, causing every cell in his body to tremble. It was hard to tell if it was fear or some other emotion. Origin energy of the netherworld. Divine fire armor. For types of divine flames condensed into an extremely domineering armor. The raging flames were vast and mighty, making him seem like a sovereign of flames. And Lin felt that if he didn't defend with all his might, he would definitely be screwed. He was just about to unleash the power of the golden void lightning when Emperor Ziwei's spear had already been hurled. The entire world turned colorful, and a spear containing a terrifying penetrative power pierced towards Lin, leaving a trail in the void that was enough to shatter thousands of Taos. Outside the immortal spirit tower, the rippling screen had turned into a colorful screen. There were only 7 colors on the screen and nothing else. And Lin launched a fist toward the oncoming spear, but the golden fist projection was punctured like tofu before striking the divine fire armor. In the face of the rainbow spear, the 4 divine flames instantly crumbled, as if they had lost the support of the essence of fire. And Lin's heart jolted with shock upon seeing this, but he was unable to do anything. He could only look on as the rainbow spear struck his chest, upon which boundless light erupted forth. Ah! He let loose a cry of pain as his body was slammed into the wall by the spear. The terrifying penetrative power of the spear shattered the space around it as heaven and earth screeched. A bone-chilling pain instantly swept through Lin's entire body, and just the shockwaves alone were enough to make the spell formation around the immortal spirit tower show signs of cracking. The indestructible body of the divine god of battle, finally, had a crack on it. Kacha! The crisp crack was like an announcement of death, and Lin was struck by an indescribable sense of agony. The spear tore through the war god's body before piercing through the void and the walls of the immortal spirit tower, as well as the protective spell formation. It then left a rainbow streak of light in the sky that extended into infinity and beyond. PFFF, Bai Zhong, who was in the process of maintaining the spell formation, was struck by a backlash, and he threw up a mouthful of blood. The rippling screen exploded again, and this time all of the students and teachers were struck by an indescribably terrifying power. They stared blankly up at the destructive rainbow in the sky, unable to imagine what would happen to Enlin in the face of such a powerful spell technique. Su Xiaolan, Xian Yuancheng, let loose a cry of surprise as he followed along. Su Xiaolan had already leaped onto her sword and flew toward the 99th level. Su Qianyin, Lu Qianhuan, Tang Shimin, and the others also flew toward the 99th level. All of them were worried about Enlin. A series of streaks of light flew toward the top of the Immortal Spirit Tower as all of the students and teachers above the Spirit Nurturing stage flew into the sky. Meanwhile, all of the Dao Body stage cultivators began to yell for Senior Bai Zhong to show them the rippling screen. Don't come any closer. It's not safe here, so go back to where you came from. I'll show you the screen right away. Bai Zhong yelled in a loud voice as he blocked off all of the onlookers. Are you all right, Grandpa Bai Zhong? Su Qianyin asked with a concerned expression. A warm smile appeared on Bai Zhong's face. I'm fine. It's just that this battle was more intense than I had anticipated, and I was struck by a backlash. Just give me some time to recover. Since the caretaker of the restricted area had spoken, everyone else could only return to where they were. Bai Zhong began to repair the spell formation and the rippling screen with a practiced hand. After the screen was restored, it was revealed that Enlin was half kneeling on the ground with blood dripping from his body. Enlin! Su Xiaolan's heart throbbed with pain as she stared at Enlin's figure. She discovered that there was a bloody hole in Enlin's chest. Who would have thought that Enlin's defenses would really be broken? Of course! Didn't you see how terrifying Emperor Ziwei's attack was? What kind of vendetta does he have against Enlin? I feel like Emperor Ziwei is trying to kill Enlin. I also feel like he went too far. If Enlin wasn't this powerful, would he really have been killed? Most of the students were quite disgruntled upon seeing this, and they were all quite critical of Emperor Ziwei. Only the Celestial Arch was extremely shocked. He was well aware of just how powerful Emperor Ziwei's Dao fragmentary spear was. Even when unleashed through his divine intent, the power of that spear was no less than an attack from a return to Void Stage mighty figure. But Enlin had only managed to inflict a bloody hole on his body. He had already mentally prepared himself for Enlin's body to be pulverized. One had to realize that Enlin only had 1% of his power at the moment. If he had 100% of his power, then how powerful would his body be? How powerful would his defenses be? The Celestial Arch recalled what Emperor Ziwei had told him. Enlin wasn't as weak as he had imagined. That's right. Enlin's power had far exceeded his expectations. Perhaps it was time to reconsider Enlin's power. Ziwei had made the right decision to assess Enlin's power. He had been given quite a fright upon doing so. On the 99th level of the Immortal Spirit Tower, Enlin clasped a hand over his bleeding chest as he slowly rose to his feet. Who would have thought that a spell technique that expended a third of my power was only able to inflict this much damage on you? An expression of surprise appeared on Emperor Ziwei's face. A faint smile appeared on Enlin's face. I also didn't think that my body wouldn't be invincible. Emperor Ziwei! The evergreen technique quickly circulated around Enlin's wound to repair his injuries. If that spell used a third of your power, then I'm sorry to tell you. Enlin raised his head and looked directly at Emperor Ziwei with a hint of confidence and arrogance on his face. You can't defeat me. Chapter 617. Enlin had spoken his mind, and Emperor Ziwei's expression faltered slightly upon hearing this. Indeed, he wouldn't die even if he were to take a few more hits from a technique of this caliber. You can't defeat me. This was a simple statement, but it was imbued with peerless confidence, as if it were as heavy as a mountain. Without power and unyielding fighting spirit, there was no way he would be able to say something like this. One had to realize that this statement was meant for the Tao integration stage true God, Emperor Ziwei. Sure enough, all of the students outside the Immortal Spirit Tower were astonished by Enlin's aura, and a new wave of diehard fans joined the fray. A joyful smile appeared on Emperor Ziwei's face as he looked at Enlin. Ha ha ha. It's been a long time since someone has said something like this to me. Now that I'm hearing it, my blood is starting to boil. Wings of wind appeared on Enlin's back, and he charged toward Emperor Ziwei again. For white lightning swords appeared beside him as they whistled through the air toward Emperor Ziwei. You're way too impatient. A faint smile appeared on Emperor Ziwei's face as he waved a hand through the air, upon which a golden cube barrier enshrouded his entire body. Boom, boom, boom. The white lightning sword struck the golden cube barrier, causing it to tremor violently. The 4 lightning swords were unable to penetrate Emperor Ziwei's defenses in the end. Their sharpness was thwarted and lightning exploded. Emperor Ziwei turned toward Enlin, and he was just about to speak when he saw the image of a golden eye on Enlin's forehead. Divine Plunder Technique. The flying lightning sword was merely a feint Enlin had used to get closer to Emperor Ziwei, and he was only using it to get within a 100-meter radius of Emperor Ziwei. His true technique was the Divine Plunder Technique, and Lin didn't know if the Divine Plunder Technique would work, but he could only try his luck. Emperor Ziwei was a Tao integration stage mighty figure, as well as the patriarch of immortal spells. As such, he had a limitless arsenal of natural abilities and spell techniques, and Lin didn't want his head to explode, so he could only choose a technique at random. Golden ripples began to proliferate through the golden barrier before enshrouding Emperor Ziwei's body. And Lin was already prepared to make a blind selection, but that thought came to an abrupt halt. That was because the feedback from his spells was not a vast sea of talents or spells. On the contrary, there were only 2 things that he could plunder. One was a combination of boundlessly profound Tao wills, and the other was a mass of energy with extremely strong waves of divine soul. And Lin came to a realization. The target of his plunder wasn't Emperor Ziwei's main body, but rather the divine intent of battle that had separated from his main body. Battle Divine Sense was originally 1, but it could also be divided into 2 parts, Battle and Divine Sense. That boundlessly profound Tao intent was the power of the North Pole Emperor's battle information. The cluster of energy with extremely powerful divine soul fluctuations should be the divine will that supported the existence of this Ziwei. If he could plunder that ball of energy with extremely strong divine soul fluctuations, he should be able to directly destroy Ziwei, right? No, and Lin would not choose that. He hadn't even rubbed Ziwei against the ground yet. I can't let him disappear just like that. In that case, I can only do this. This was the chance to rub Ziwei against the ground. Plunder Tao wills. An invisible ripple pierced through Emperor Ziwei's body, making him feel as if he had lost something in that instant. At this moment, Enlin was already charging toward him, his fist enshrouded in golden light. Dark Cloud Great Void Palm. Emperor Ziwei unleashed a palm strike toward Enlin. Slap. His palm was slapped away by Enlin. Emperor Ziwei's eyes widened, and an expression of uncontrollable shock appeared on his face for the first time. At this moment, Enlin's fist was already hurtling toward his face. Boom! Golden light exploded, and the terrifying power of Enlin's fist crashed into Ziwei's face. Ziwei's body tumbled to the ground, and he threw up a large mouthful of blood as a dazed expression appeared on his face. He was just about to crawl to his feet when Enlin made a grabbing motion in the air. A golden cube with a radius of 3 meters began to enshroud his body. Countless golden symbols revolved around the cube, releasing an extremely fearsome sealing power. Emperor Ziwei was forced to the ground again by this terrifying sealing power. Lightning appeared beneath Enlin's feet, and he flashed toward Emperor Ziwei at a terrifying speed. His fist was enshrouded in golden light as he launched another punch toward Emperor Ziwei's reddened face. Boom! Emperor Ziwei's head spun from the impact of this punch, and he threw up another mouthful of blood. Moonlight Dragon Fist. And Lin roared with rage as the power of the moon burst forth from his fist. The projection of a white dragon's head appeared, and he slammed it toward Emperor Ziwei's face. The power of the moon exploded forth, and the entire space on the 99th level solidified into a white domain. Emperor Ziwei's body also became extremely tough. Extreme Yang reincarnation soared, and Lin clapped his hands together, and a golden long sword materialized in the air. Scorching waves of energy surged through the air. The golden long sword buzzed as it pierced into Emperor Ziwei's chest with terrifying heat. Myriad Demon Palm. Azure Dragon Roar. Lightning Piercing Meteor Finger. A series of terrifying attacks rained down on the fallen Emperor Ziwei. Emperor Ziwei was completely defenseless and could only endure Lin's relentless barrage of attacks, just like how he had slammed Lin into the wall earlier. Didn't you have a lot of fun beating me up before? Come on, why aren't you so cocky now? How does it feel to be slammed into the wall? And Lin taunted as he unleashed a flurry of spell techniques. He was getting more and more excited as he fought. What kind of experience was it to beat up a Tao integration stage true god? Normal people wouldn't even have the opportunity to do so. Some people would even piss themselves in fear. Even if Emperor Ziwei told him to, he wouldn't dare to attack. However, Lin was different. He was someone who had been brutally ravaged by Emperor Ziwei. Now that he had a chance to exact revenge, how could he hold back? If you really had to ask him how it felt, he could only answer, "Very good." That's right, super good. And Lin used Emperor Ziwei's spell technique to bombard Emperor Ziwei. He didn't use any of the same techniques, but he continued to ravage Emperor Ziwei in a myriad of different ways. Emperor Ziwei finally understood that all of his techniques had been stolen by Lin. Aside from a relatively powerful body, he had nothing else. Outside the Immortal Spirit Tower, Baizhong stood in the air and stared at the absurd scenes unfolding before him with a dumbstruck expression. Over 10,000 students and teachers stared blankly at the scenes unfolding before their eyes as they listened to Lin's taunts. They felt like they were living in a dream. The entire place was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. This turn of events was far too astonishing, and Lin was clearly on the back foot, but he was able to slam Emperor Ziwei into the ground and unleash a flurry of attacks. Even though they were witnessing this with their own eyes, it was still extremely difficult to accept. After a long while, a student finally murmured, "That's the high and mighty Emperor Ziwei. How did he get pummeled just like that? I saw that his nose was already bleeding from the beating. I feel like I'm dreaming. Did classmate Lin really just slam Emperor Ziwei into the ground?" It looks like he used some kind of sealing spell technique on Emperor Ziwei. It looks like Emperor Ziwei is completely unable to retaliate. He can also absorb the power of spell techniques. Did you not see that? And Lin can use Emperor Ziwei's spell techniques. That's the Emperor of the Celestial Court. Godin is so bad *SS. He's got guts. I'm going to remember this for the rest of my life. And Lin pummeled Emperor Ziwei. Did you see that? That's our Godin. He's an existence who can *CK the heavens. Hurry up and sign up if you want to join our team. The scenes unfolding on the screen were simply too astonishing. All of the students discussed spiritedly among themselves, as if they were trying to express their irrepressible emotions through words. Even Su Xiaolan, Shen Yuancheng, and the others couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. And Lin had once again refreshed their understanding of power. My God, this is something that I wouldn't even dare to dream about. But classmate and Lin did it. Tang Shimin murmured with undisguised astonishment on his face. Shen Yuancheng smiled. Do you understand now? As long as you work hard, anything is possible. Somewhere in the sky, the celestial arch was also completely dumbstruck. He had never seen Emperor Zue being pummeled into the ground like this before. Dark history. This was definitely dark history. He silently pulled out a crystal ball and secretly recorded this historical moment. He had profited from this round of secret observation, and it was a huge profit. Chapter 618. And Lin was getting tired of using Emperor Ziwei's spell techniques, so he decided to use his fists instead. A series of sandbag-sized fists crashed into Emperor Ziwei's body, sweeping up bursts of golden shockwaves that caused the entire Immortal Spirit Tower to tremor slightly. This was the legendary tower quaking. Emperor Ziwei's face was already swollen and bruised, and his clothes were in disarray. He looked nothing like the Emperor of the Celestial Court. When had he ever been beaten so badly before? From birth until now, he had always been a proud dragon, and he was always the one beating the crap out of everyone else. But now, and Lin had given him a taste of what it felt like to be bashed. Furthermore, he was completely defenseless, and he felt as if he had fallen from the clouds into hell. How does it feel? Does it feel good to be rubbed into the ground? And Lin vented his negative emotions as he rained down punches. Perhaps this is retribution, Emperor Ziwei thought to himself. Finally, he was unable to endure the relentless barrage of attacks, and his body began to crumble. And Lin faltered slightly upon seeing this, and he immediately stopped his attacks. "You won, classmate in Lin," Emperor Ziwei said with a smile. Even though he was in an extremely sorry state, he still maintained his graceful demeanor, and Lin extended a salute. "Senior Ziwei, this was only a sparring match. You wouldn't mind, would you?" He was feeling extremely uneasy. Even though everything was for the sake of his mission, it was still a fact that he had bashed Emperor Ziwei. If Emperor Ziwei decided to come after him after he had provoked such a lofty and mighty figure, then he would be screwed. This was only a small sparring match, and you defeated me with your own strength. I'm not that petty. Emperor Ziwei looked at Lin with a hint of anticipation in his eyes. I'm very surprised by your strength. I look forward to your performance in the future. And Lin felt like Emperor Ziwei was very considerate. After getting beaten up, he even praises me. How nice. Emperor Ziwei's divine sense completely dissipated. On the 99th level of the Immortal Spirit Tower, and Lin stood alone like an invincible war god. Sunlight shone through the window onto his body, enveloping him in a layer of golden radiance, making his figure appear even taller and more imposing in the eyes of the crowd. The North Pole Emperor lost. The Emperor of the Celestial Court was defeated just like that. I still can't believe it. Just how did Lin do it? Godin really won. He really did it. The Immortal Spirit Tower has been cleared by classmate and Lin on his own. This is huge news. This is definitely huge news. This is something that will be sung throughout the entire Celestial Court and even the entire kingdom of the 9 states. I am so lucky to be able to witness such a great moment. Skipping class to watch the battle here is the wisest decision I've made this year. Ka. Some students even took out their phones or photographic artifacts to take pictures of the figure in the water ripples. And Lin, some retarded superfan began to chant Lin's name at the top of his lungs. Gradually, more and more people began to chime in, and their voices converged to form a tidal wave. And Lin. In the end, the chant of Lin erupted into the heavens. This was the most direct expression of emotion that the students had toward the man who had fallen over and over again and stood up again and again. In that instant, Lin was the undisputed war god in their hearts. A genuine smile blossomed on Su Xiaolan's face as she looked around at the cries of the spectators. She was feeling extremely proud of Lin. Even though Lin was situated at the pinnacle of the Immortal Spirit Tower, he could still hear the cheers from below, and his heart was a little moved. He had won. He had really done it. He had defeated a seemingly invincible foe. Were these battles of great help to him? Of course they were. Furthermore, the benefits were immeasurable. Being able to battle mighty figures who had attained the divine Tao, or even Tao integration stage mighty figures, would not only drastically enhance one's combat prowess, but they would also be able to experience the power of the Tao realm to the fullest. This would be immensely helpful in constructing one's own Tao in the future. Another thought suddenly occurred to Enlin. He had passed the 99th level and defeated Emperor Ziwei. So what were the rewards for passing the 99th level? My God! Emperor Ziwei had disappeared without a word, and he hadn't even received any benefits, let alone an inheritance. How King irresponsible was that? Right at this moment, Baizhong appeared before Enlin with an excited expression on his face. Congratulations, classmate Enlin, for passing the final level of the Immortal Spirit Tower and accomplishing an unprecedented feat. You are the pride of the Celestial Court, and your feats will be celebrated throughout the entire Celestial Court, even throughout the entire kingdom of the 9 states. Enlin glowered at Baizhong with a dark expression. I don't care about fame. Baizhong was a little confused as he looked at Enlin. Why, classmate Enlin, you don't seem very happy? I just want to ask, I passed the 99th level, so where is my inheritance? Enlin asked expressionlessly. Baizhong's body shuddered, and his face convulsed slightly. He suddenly came to a realization. That's right, he had passed the 99th level. Where was his inheritance? Even if there was no inheritance, there should at least be a reward, right? But no one had told him what the reward for passing the 99th level was. After all, no one had even passed the 98th level. That's a good question. Baizhong clapped his hands together with a buoyant smile. Enlin. So? Enlin asked. We'll talk about that later. Baizhong wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. F***CK. Who? Enlin spoke with a solemn expression. Baizhong was dumbstruck. What? So be it. Enlin wore a disinterested expression as he said, Just get me out of here. Baizhong. So his elated congratulatory speech ended in such a strange and inexplicable manner? Baizhong's heart was crushed. Enlin finally appeared outside the Immortal Spirit Tower, and he was warmly welcomed by all of his friends and tens of thousands of students. Enlin, are your wounds all right? Su Xiaolan made her way over to him with furrowed brows as she caressed the wound on Enlin's chest with her slender fingers. Thanks to the self-healing power of the evergreen technique, the bleeding stopped. Don't worry, it's just a minor injury. Enlin patted Su Xiaolan's head with a warm smile on his face. Enlin, your performance has exceeded the limits of my imagination. Tang Shimin also made his way over to Enlin with a scorching light in his eyes. Never would he have thought that he would one day admire his junior disciple. You're the one who's limited your imagination. Su Xiaolan pursed her lips. Enlin, you've given senior student Tang a new lease on life. Xianyuan Cheng praised with an elated expression. Tang Shimin's expression darkened upon hearing this. When did I become a salted fish? How can you talk to your senior like that? Everyone burst into raucous laughter. The teachers and students slowly dispersed amid a mix of excitement and contentment. Sword Immortal Dong, he looked at Enlin with approval and admiration in his eyes. Enlin had done something that he would never be able to do, so it was impossible for him not to be impressed. Thus, the journey to the Immortal Spirit Tower drew to a conclusion. However, those legendary stories were destined to never be forgotten by people. Xianyuan Cheng, Su Qianyun, Su Xiaolan, Lu Qianhuan, and even Tang Shimin, all of whom were legendary figures. All of their feats were being discussed enthusiastically by everyone. Of course, there was also Enlin, who pummeled a Tao integration stage true god and passed through all 99 levels of the Immortal Spirit Tower. His appearance pushed the story of the Immortal Spirit Tower to the pinnacle, and it became a legendary story that spread throughout the entire kingdom of the 9 states. Chapter 619. Enlin returned to his dorm room in exhaustion. He didn't have time to look at the system's mission, but he knew that he had definitely completed the mission. Otherwise, he would have been running around naked on the 99th level of the Immortal Spirit Tower, running around naked in front of tens of thousands of teachers and students. Just the thought of it sent chills running down his spine. Thankfully, he had successfully rubbed Emperor Zaiwei into the ground. He opened the door to find a huge, white dog pouncing toward him. Big brother in. I heard you pummeled Emperor Zaiwei. That's so bad, SS woof. And Lin patted the dog's head with a nonchalant smile. It's just a small matter. Don't make a big deal out of it. Gasp. Xiao Zhe and Little Lang both drew a sharp intake of breath upon hearing this. He had pummeled a legendary Dao integration stage true god, and he said it was a small matter? How bad, SS. Only Dabai had already gotten used to Lin's antics, and he yelled in a very natural manner. In any case, this is something worth celebrating. Let's have frying pan level hot pot today. Woof. Xiao, Zhe, Little Lang, Little Cho, Little Tian, and even Little Hong and Tina's eyes lit up upon hearing this. So this was Dabai's main point. All of the beast pets chimed in agreement, expressing that they had to have frying pan level hot pot to celebrate. During the past few days without Lin, everything they ate tasted like *T, and they had completely lost their appetites. It was also because of these past few days that Tina, who had been troubled by the lack of food, was successfully pulled into Little Red's group, and she chose to eat solar energy. And Lin paused for a moment before finally nodding in agreement to Dabai's suggestion. Another burst of raucous cheers erupted within the dorm room. It wasn't time for dinner yet, so Lin carried Shui Zhantian back to his bedroom. He laid Shui Zhantian down at the foot of the bed before lying down and resting his head on Shui Zhantian's body. Shui Zhantian's fur was soft and warm, and it was very comfortable to sleep on. Master, I'm so loyal and devoted. I'm so sincere. Don't worry, I'll get you a bowl of soup for dinner. Yay, Master is the best. Shui Zhantian patted Lin's cheek with an excited expression on his face. All right, stop messing around. Let me rest for a while. And Lin had experienced so many battles and was indeed very tired. He had basically reached the point where he would fall asleep the moment he lay down. Before he fell asleep, he thought of something and opened the system in his mind. Sure enough, it showed that the special mission had been completed, and he could now draw his reward. And Lin chose to start drawing, and a special spell wheel appeared. Countless spells appeared on it, all of which were shrouded in a layer of white mist, making it impossible to see their names. He cursed in his heart. If he couldn't even see the name of the wheel, what was the point of playing this roulette? He might as well just show the results of the draw. The spell technique he had obtained from the previous lottery was the Make You Cry spell technique, and it couldn't be used on Dao integration stage cultivators. As a result, Lin could only bully a small fry like Ji Yongfang. Hopefully it will be better this time, and Lin began the lottery, and the wheel began to spin. He rubbed his hands and silently prayed to Senior White for his blessings. Stop! The wheel began to spin slower and slower until it finally stopped spinning. The mist on the box that the needle was pointing at slowly dispersed, revealing the name of the spell technique. Holy F *CK! He stared at the spell technique in front of him, and his eyes widened in disbelief. Whoosh! The spell technique from the system transformed into a streak of white light and fused into Lin's body. Make You Suck spell technique. One-way biological attack spell technique. The target struck by this spell technique will experience an extremely strong sense of diarrhea. If the target's cultivation base is too low, it may even kill the target. If the target's cultivation base is too high, they will have a certain level of resistance. Note: this spell technique can only be used once a day. It is ineffective against targets of the Dao integration stage. And Lin almost spat out a mouthful of blood. It was this kind of messy spell technique again. What was the point of having it? Not only was this spell technique useless, but it was also disgusting. If you want to cry, you can still try it on Dubai. If you want to pull this spell technique, who will try it on? There isn't even a single villain in the school right now. Speaking of which, can you really pull someone to death? And Lin was a little tempted. Although spell techniques were useless, he could still play with them. He could make many small animals have diarrhea and increase his knowledge. For example, have you ever seen a snake poop? Have you ever seen a tiger poop? Have you ever seen a dragon poop? Have you ever seen a phoenix poop? Also, could skeletons poop? That's right. He could see all kinds of animal postures that he had never seen before. Just thinking about it made him a little excited, and Lin fell asleep in his reverie, and he seemed to have had a beautiful dream. Could cultivators dream? The answer was yes. Furthermore, cultivators' dreams were all very clear. Some were simple, sweet dreams. Some were Tao realm dreams that reflected one's Tao heart, and there were also dreams of inner demons. Some of the more powerful ones could even dream of a certain type of future. Night fell. Countless stars appeared in the night sky, and Lin dreamed that he made Su Xiaolin angry and was slapped in the face. However, when the woman was angry, she was always unreasonable. As if one slap wasn't enough, she gave him a series of slaps. Big brother in. Wake up. Woof. Wake up. It's time to eat, woof. Dubai raised its paws and slapped Lin left and right, finally waking up Lin. And Lin slowly opened his eyes and glanced at Dubai. He wasn't in a bad mood when he woke up. Otherwise, he would have just unleashed a mountain-quaking fist and pummeled Dubai to the point where even its own mother wouldn't be able to recognize it. Immediately after that was a family gathering. This family referred to the large family of beast pets. And Lin also called his neighbor, Su Xiaolan, over. Su Xiaolan wore a light blue Taoist robe, which was a rare occasion. Her slender waist was tied up with a plain colored sash, and her black hair was tied up in a bun, revealing her fair and slender neck. Her eyes were bright and mesmerizing, and she was very elegant. And Lin, you haven't even fully recovered from your injuries, but you're already so eager to hold a celebratory feast? Her voice was as pleasant as an oriole's, and there was a dainty smile on her face, and Lin massaged his brows, which still had Dubai's paw prints on his face. It's all because of these beast pets. I feel like I'm not their master, but more like a servant who takes care of their meals. Dubai slammed his paw onto the table. How are you going to cultivate our loyalty if you don't take care of our meals and lodging? Woof! Big brother Bai is right. Shui Zhantian chimed in agreement. Master, I only have 2 hobbies left, photosynthesis and frying pan food. You have to satisfy us. Xiao Hong also chimed in a sweet voice. See? And Lin splayed his hands open in exasperation. Su Xiaolan chuckled as her eyes curved into crescents. Then it's all thanks to Dubai and the others that I have the opportunity to eat this hot pot. And Lin chuckled. No, as long as you want to eat it, I'll cook it for you every day. He extended a hand toward Su Xiaolan as he spoke and grasped onto her soft, almost boneless hand. Su Xiaolan's eyes were as vibrant as the autumn waters, and a faint blush appeared on her face as she turned her head away in embarrassment. Just eat, hot pot. Why are you touching me? The soup hasn't even started boiling yet. And Lin chuckled. Xiao Cho silently unleashed his flame power to increase the intensity of the heat. Dubai silently pulled out his homemade dog biscuits and distributed a few to his other beast pets. He was just worried that they would be stuffed with dog biscuits before the hot pot even started. The steaming hot pot wafted through the air as an extremely alluring aroma wafted through the air. And Lin, Su Xiaolan, Xiaozhe, and all of his beast pets enjoyed the hot pot together. This was a peaceful and blissful day. Chapter 620. The next morning, and Lin and Tina went to class again. And Lin caught sight of a bird flying through the sky, and his expression darkened. A certain spell technique pierced through space before striking the bird. Yupu spell technique. and Lin didn't unleash the full power of this spell technique. Instead, he only used a sliver of his power. Even so, the bird's body still shuddered. Immediately afterward, a pile of poop fell from the sky and landed on the ground. That wasn't all. The bird continued to poo as it flew through the sky, and a small pile of poop even struck a female student's clothes, drawing loud screams from the female student. And Lin nodded upon seeing this. Just a sliver of his power was enough to produce such a significant effect. It looked like this spell technique was quite powerful. Tina turned to Lin with a speechless expression, as if she wanted to say something. She couldn't detect the fluctuations of the spell technique, but from the bird's appearance and in Lin's expression, she could roughly guess what was going on. Hence, a hint of disdain appeared in her eyes, as if to say, "You've changed, Giant and Lin." Class time always passed by quickly. During the lunch break, Lin, Su Xiaolan, Xian Yuan-cheng, Su Qianyun, and Lu Zhan were summoned by their homeroom teacher, Flying Sword God, to give them their rewards for the Immortal Spirit Tower trial. Being able to battle a mighty figure of the past and receive an inheritance was the best reward they could hope for. However, other material rewards were still a must. After all, Xiaoxian United University wasn't that poor after all. Lu Zhan's reward was quite simple, as he only received some pills and spirit stones. Su Xiaolan, Xian Yuan-cheng, and Su Qianyun, on the other hand, had all passed level 80 and entered the Hall of Fame, so their rewards naturally couldn't be too shabby. Aside from pills and spirit stones, they also received a chance to enter the University Treasure Vault to choose a high-rank spirit tool, as well as a 5th-grade Immortal Pill coupon, which allowed them to refine an Immortal Pill below the 5th grade for free from Ishi. Su Xiaolan had passed the higher levels, so she received 2 Tier 5 Immortal Pill coupons. As for Lin, he was someone who would be commended by the entire school. Putting aside the spirit stones and spirit pills, there were only a few 100,000 spirit stones and a dozen spirit pills. He didn't care about the 2 high-grade spirit artifacts or the 5 grade 5 Immortal Pill coupons. He didn't even look at the dazzling trophy and the soulful medal. And Lin directly asked the homeroom teacher, "Where is Emperor Ziwei's inheritance?" Flying Sword God, the homeroom teacher was feeling quite depressed. He couldn't go and question Emperor Ziwei about this, could he? He was the emperor of the Celestial Court. It was not his business whether or not he passed down the inheritance. Moreover, news of Emperor Ziwei's brutal beating at the hands of Lin had already spread far and wide. It would already be a blessing if Emperor Ziwei didn't settle the score with Lin, but Lin was actually so thick-skinned as to try and claim the inheritance? Wasn't this like lighting a lamp in the toilet? Flying Sword God finally managed to pacify Lin and promised to give Lin an answer in a week. If Emperor Ziwei still didn't say anything after a week, then as the homeroom teacher, he would have no choice but to sacrifice himself and speak up for his student. Flying Sword God looked up at the sky. Just thinking about it made him feel like a hero. After school, Lin returned to his dorm with the trophy and medal. The trophy was carved from vital stones and exuded extremely powerful vital energy fluctuations. It was worth around 100,000 spirit stones, and there was a line of words engraved on it, "And Lin, the rising star of the Celestial Court." The metal was polished from 5 colored pearls from the Eastern Sea and appeared extremely intricate and beautiful. There were also a few words engraved on it, "Little War God of the Celestial Court." Looks like I've made a name for myself in the Battle of the War God. Even the Celestial Court has officially acknowledged me. And Lin looked at the medal with a smug smile. Don't be too complacent. There's still true Lord Erling above you. Don't you see the word little on the medal? Student Lin needs to continue to work hard, Su Xiaolan advised. Yes, Xiaolan is right. Celestial Maiden Xiaolan is my guide in life. She's the one who keeps me from losing my way in the face of glory, and she's leading me down a more glorious path. And Lin spoke with a solemn expression. Su Xiaolan rolled her eyes at Enlin with a seductive expression. Shut up. After returning to his dorm, Enlin organized the items in his storage ring to find that he had a lot of immortal pills. 5 immortal pill coupons were completely useless. Also, what kind of high-rank spirit tools should he exchange for? Perhaps only immortal tools could stir up waves in his heart now. He fell into a dazed state of overabundance. In the end, he asked his beast pets what immortal pills and spirit tools they needed. In the end, he discovered that he didn't need most of them. Only Tina requested a wood-type immortal pill that was imbued with extremely powerful life force energy in order to construct a mirror world. What's a mirror world? And Lin asked. Tina blinked her emerald eyes as she replied, That's the fragment of the realm core you're talking about. It's using the ancient Tai Chu realm's Qi Lu city as the foundation to construct a world within it. It's like a world with a symmetrical mirror surface. And Lin's interest was immediately piqued upon hearing this, and he placed Tina in his palm. Quick, tell me what's going on. Very few people knew that Tina had obtained a fragment of the realm core. A life form fusing with a fragment of the realm core was unheard of. Aside from him, Shui Zhantian, and the 3 blood tribe servants, all of whom were on his side, knew about this. Oh, perhaps the Snow Maidens knew about this as well. Tina didn't mention anything about the fragment of the realm core before, as she was also quite clueless about it. Back when she had absorbed the wandering spirits in Qi Lu City, it was more of an instinctive reaction due to the guidance of the realm core. However, Tina had already begun to explore the power of the fragment of the realm core within her body. She discovered that in order to allow the wandering spirits to live in the mirror world, she had to first construct a reasonable world. Secondly, she needed extremely powerful life force energy as the source of energy for all living beings. This was not something that she could achieve on her own, and she might need the power of an immortal pill as well. And Lin paused for a moment before asking, Is 1 5th grade immortal pill enough? Do you want a few more? Tina shook her head. No need. 1 5th grade immortal pill already contains a lot of life force energy. Oh, right, Giant and Lin, I can project your consciousness into my world. Do you want to come and have a look? Tina asked with a wide grin, and Lin's eyes lit up upon hearing this. How could he possibly refuse? He immediately nodded. Of course. A vibrant smile blossomed on Tina's face as she flapped her golden wings and flew toward Lin. She extended a slender little hand toward Lin's forehead as an ethereal fragment suddenly appeared in her eyes. She spoke in a soft voice, I want your consciousness to not refuse my invitation. And Lin nodded. Immediately afterward, a certain summoning power suddenly drew upon his consciousness. He didn't refuse, and the world around him spun as a new world appeared before him. Chapter 6:21. A warm sun hung high in the sky. There were white clouds in the blue sky, and the clouds danced and changed shape as the gentle breeze blew past. And Lin appeared on a street in a city. This street was very wide, and the ground was paved with extremely smooth bricks. There were many shops on either side of the street. A dazed expression appeared on his face. He and Xiaolan had once held hands and walked side by side on this street. This was Qi Lu City, the extremely prosperous Qi Lu City from countless years ago. However, there were no living beings here. All of the apricot trees along the street had also become withered and lifeless. And Lin looked up at the sun and took a deep breath. The sunlight was a little blinding. This place gave him the same feeling as the illusionary realm he had been in. It was extremely realistic, and all of his senses were no different from the outside world. No, perhaps this was reality. This was the world reflected in the mirror. Giant and Lin, my world can't allow beings of too high a rank to exist, so you can only unleash spirit nurturing stage power. Tina's light voice sounded right beside Lin's ear, giving him a fright. And Lin looked around in surprise. Huh, little Mao, where are you? Me. I am this world. Tina chuckled. This world? My God. And Lin was instantly struck by a sense of superiority upon hearing this. He asked, I'm just a projection of my consciousness. How can I possess power? Didn't they say that consciousness can't interfere with the physical world? Hee, that's because I've bestowed upon you a body. You're not just a consciousness now. You have a body of flesh and blood. Tina spoke with a smug expression. Only then did Lin begin to examine his own body. He discovered that his appearance was the same as before, but this was a rather powerful body, not the body of the war god that he had attained. He unleashed his cloud riding technique, and vital energy surged as his body rose into the air. Haha, there's even vital energy here? And Lin chuckled with elation. Yes, Yuan Qi is the same as earth, water, wind, and fire. It is the most basic substance in the world. It has existed since the birth of this world. Tina paused for a few seconds before continuing. When life is born in this world and the laws become more complete, I might be able to try to fuse you as a living being. In other words, the entire life form has integrated into this world. And Lin was shocked when he heard this. He raised his head in shock and asked, What do you mean? My whole body can come here? His main body entered? That's right. It's just like the transmigration you mentioned before. Yes, it's transmigration to this place. There was a hint of excitement in Tina's voice, and it was clear that she was eager to try it out. And Lin fell silent. Could it allow living beings to transmigrate? This was most likely not an illusionary realm. Tina was trying to create a real world. Transmigration of one's consciousness could be created through illusionary realms. But when it came to transmigration of an individual, it had to be a complete world. Little Na, how are you going to create the substance in this world? Don't you need realm essence crystals? And Lin asked with a concerned expression. There are already realm essence crystals in the fragment of the realm core, as well as the life essence of 9 return to void stage mighty figures. These were all left behind by my 2 grandfathers when they wanted to construct this world. However, my world is different from the one they wanted to create. My world is a world that combines illusion and reality. It possesses the authenticity of the foundation of this world and can avoid the erosion of the laws of the universe. At the same time, it can also make my illusionary creations come to life. Tina spoke incessantly, and Lin listened with rapt attention. And Lin knew that Tina had already become a godlike existence in this world. How could he put this? It was truly terrifying. No one had ever been able to fuse with a fragment of the realm core in the past. She had most likely set a precedent. It was exactly because of this that she possessed a terrifying amount of authority over this world. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to refer to her as the god of creation or God. And Lin flew through the air. Qi Lu City was extremely large, covering an area of over 50 kilometers. The Black Pagoda still stood at the center of the city, and there were 9 orbs of light hovering in the air above the pagoda, as if they were nurturing something. Those 9 orbs of light were most likely the life essence of the 9 return to void stage mighty figures that Tina was referring to. And Lin continued onward and flew out of Qi Lu City. A vast expanse of barren earth appeared before his eyes, presenting a bleak and desolate sight to behold. He couldn't help but ask, Little Na, just how big is this world of yours? It's about 5,000 kilometers in radius. This is as far as I can expand this world. As for whether it can grow in the future, that's hard to say, Tina replied with an uncertain expression. 5,000 kilometers in radius, and Lin's face convulsed upon hearing this. This was way too *king big. This nascent world was equivalent to 80 million square kilometers in size, while the total area of the Earth was only about 500 million square kilometers. He was extremely eager to see how this world would develop. Little Na, let me out. I'll find an immortal pill for you right now. And Lin spoke with excitement, after a rush of dizziness, and Lin's vision darkened. Immediately afterward, Light returned to his eyes, and he was greeted by the sight of a beautiful, flawless face. Hee, Giant and Lin, what do you think? Am I awesome? There was a hint of anticipation in Tina's eyes as she flew toward Lin with an enticing smile on her face. Little Na is super awesome. And Lin patted Tina's head with a doting expression. I'm going to Do Shuai Palace first. Tina flew onto Lin's shoulder before wrapping her arms around his neck with a smile. Little Na wants to come with you. I've never seen a mortal pill refinement before. And Lin couldn't refuse Tina, who was so eager to learn. He thought about it for a moment before nodding and flying toward Do Shuai Palace on Debai's back. Debai flew through the clouds and landed in front of a majestic building. Wow, what a huge palace. It's like a mountain. Tina's eyes were wide open, and a green light swirled within them as an extremely excited expression appeared on her face. And Lin smiled at the sight of Do Shuai Palace. Thinking back to the first time he had come here, his expression was no better than Tina's. He was a regular here, and he was immediately treated like a nouveau riche as soon as he walked in. A male and a female attendant brought them directly to Yi Shi. Mr. Yi Shi, how have you been? And Lin was struck by a sense of familiarity at the sight of the chubby Yi Shi, and he immediately made his way over to greet him. Haha, Mr. Lin, I'm still the same as always. I heard that you've made great progress in alchemy recently, and you've also thrashed Emperor Zui. I'm both shocked and envious. Mr. Yi Shi was also very excited to see Lin, and he looked up and down at Lin as if he was trying to glean something from him. Sai, let's not talk about it. I fought that arduous battle for nothing. And Lin couldn't help but brood over Emperor Ziwei's inheritance whenever he thought of him. How could you say that? You have to know that you're renowned throughout the celestial court now. Many immortals are talking about you, and many celestial maidens are probably interested in you. She spoke with a sneaky expression. Tina's mouth gaped open as she stared at the man before her. A giant god fiend with Xue Zhantian's bloodline? And Lin? She faltered slightly upon hearing this, and he turned to discover a flawlessly perfect fairy looking at him with amazement in her eyes. Holy F***CK! What a beautiful fairy! Chapter 6, 22. Tina recoiled in fright at that roar, and she rubbed her head against Lin's neck before tugging on Lin's hair as she stared fearfully at the fatso before her. She finally realized that he had lost his composure, and he chuckled sheepishly. He then turned to Lin with an envious expression. Not bad, Lin. Such a beautiful fairy. What's going on? And Lin introduced with a gentle smile. Her name is Tina, and she's my beast pet. He's Yi Shi, the #1 pill refinement master of Do Shuai Palace, as well as the #1 pill refinement master of the Celestial Court. She's lips twitched. Beast pet? And Lin, what kind of dumb luck do you have to have such a beautiful fairy as your follower? And Lin, Tina's eyes widened. Giant and Lin, he can refine pills even though he's so fat? Could it be that the more his body resembles a pill, the better his pill refinement skills are? She, don't spout nonsense, little Na. Big brother, she has a great body, and Lin rebuked. Oh. Tina pouted before falling silent obediently. She massaged his brows. All right, you guys win. It's rare for you to say something like that. But your Tina immediately retaliated for you. What else can I say? Tina giggled. I'm just telling the truth. All right, let's get down to business. And Lin pulled out a 5th grade immortal pill coupon with a smile. Refine me a 5th grade wood-type immortal pill with the richest life force. She's eyes lit up. Are you going to show off your pill-eating skills again? No, Tina wants to eat it, and Lin replied. She was a little disappointed, but he still began to refine the immortal pill. What he wanted to concoct was a 5th-tier immortal pill, the Verdant Emperor Immortal Flower Pill. It was concocted by extracting the essence of 9 different immortal flowers and using the Verdant Emperor Immortal Vine to concoct it. It had the effect of reviving the dead, and it contained an extremely rich life force. Shi's hands danced through the air as he manipulated the white, divine flame, upon which a series of extremely precious medicinal ingredients hovered in midair. His round body continuously moved about as if he was dancing. The divine flame also danced along with him. Tina was dumbfounded. Dancing was an eyesore, but this was the first time she had seen such a nimble fatty. Unknowingly, it was time to condense the pill. A white elixir, shrouded in immortal chi, appeared in the air. Boundless life energy rippled outward, and countless projections of immortal flowers bloomed around the pill, making the azure larch immortal flower pill even more beautiful. So beautiful! And Lin and Tina stared blankly at the pill as they spoke in unison. She had a smug expression on his face. He felt the greatest sense of accomplishment when he completed the pill, and Lin pulled out an immortal pill coupon and gave it to Shi as payment for this immortal pill. Then he immediately bade farewell. The scene he wanted to see the most was about to unfold. In the dorm room, Tina held the huge immortal pill in her hands with a smile. When I ate immortal pills in the past, they were even bigger than me, and I had to hold them and chew them slowly. I should be able to eat them much faster now. And Lin nodded. Hurry up and eat them. Oh, right, before you give birth to life, let me enter your world first, he added after a moment of thought. He had a feeling that witnessing the creation and birth of life would be an unimaginable opportunity. Tina pressed her palm against Lin's forehead again, and a powerful summoning power swept toward him. And Lin felt a rush of dizziness before his consciousness reappeared in Tina's world. He stretched his slightly frail body. That's enough. All right, then I'll eat the immortal pill and prepare to give birth to life, Tina said with a wide grin. And Lin unleashed his cloud riding technique and flew into the air to sense the changes taking place around him. Everything was extremely quiet, but an extremely penetrating light suddenly burst forth from the top of the black tower at the center of Chi Lu City. At the same time, 9 balls of light began to revolve around the top of the tower like planets. An invisible ripple began to spread from the top of the tower to heaven and earth, reaching infinitely high and infinitely far. The aura of life appeared from nothingness, just like the harmony of yin and yang, and life and death intertwined. Wisps of life began to emerge from the boundless, deathly stillness. Heaven and earth began to tremble. This was an earth-shattering transformation as countless laws began to be reconstructed. In that instant, Lin's entire body felt extremely comfortable, as if his life had been elevated and his soul had been cleansed. Only now did he truly feel like he was a living being. That's right, Tina had only bestowed upon him a body, not a complete life form. However, now that life force had appeared in heaven and earth, his body was finally filled with life force. This heaven and earth had completely changed. It was as if heaven and earth had been split apart from chaos, as if the first wisp of light had been born from the darkness. Life had been born from the boundless, deathly stillness. This was an extremely grand creation. The sun was warm, and the light breeze brought with it the aura of life. Tiny plants began to appear on the ground. Then, under the urging of some kind of power, the renewal of life began to speed up. Countless microorganisms appeared. Grass grew on the ground. New buds appeared on the withered apricot tree, and a wildflower swayed in the wind. Master, the living beings here are still quite simple, so I'm going to speed up the passage of time, Tina's voice sounded. And Lin was completely dumbfounded upon hearing this. She could even control time? This was something that even Tao integration stage mighty figures would find difficult to accomplish on the Tai Chu continent. This won't affect me, right? And Lin was afraid that his lifespan would be shortened as well. It would be hilarious if he were to die of old age after coming here to watch the show. It won't. My time manipulation can only be used on the living beings of this world, Tina replied patiently. The living beings around him began to speed up upon seeing and Lin's nod. Everything was progressing extremely quickly, as if a video had been sped up tens of thousands of times, or even hundreds of millions of times. And Lin flew out of Chi Lu City. Originally, there was only a vast expanse of grasslands and small plants here. However, as the ecosystem continued to develop, the living beings here began to multiply, grow, mutate, and multiply, and the diversity of the living beings here began to increase. Not only were there grasslands here, but there were also deserts, forests, lakes, streams, and rivers. There were also a series of mountain ranges, basins, and valleys. Insects, mammals, all types of primitive fish, and birds also began to appear. All of this was a miracle of creation, and Lin flew over this continent, and his divine sense expanded to its fullest extent as he observed the miracle of life. He could sense the life of all living beings, as well as the miraculous process of nurturing all living beings. As more and more living beings appeared, it became more and more difficult for Tina to accelerate time. Giant and Lin, let's call it a day. The power of the immortal pill has been used up, and I've also run out of energy. Let this world evolve naturally for a while, Tina's voice suddenly sounded. And Lin finally came to his senses after being immersed in the miraculous and harmonious nature of life. He looked at the mountains in front of him. There was a rabbit that was taller than a human. It opened its sharp teeth and pounced on a wolf. It directly bit off the wolf's neck and continued to chew on it. And Lin felt like he had never seen such a creature before. This was a very interesting world. He was also feeling quite tired. Paying close attention to all of this was extremely taxing on his mind. "All right, little Na, teleport me out of here as well," and Lin said as he massaged his brows. The scenery in front of him changed. His vision darkened and brightened. He once again appeared in the room of the small attic. It was already late at night. Before he knew it, another day had passed, and he had skipped classes for a day. No, perhaps it had been a few days. After all, he didn't know if this night was the same night that he had entered Tina's world. Whatever, I'll go to sleep first. And Lin was so sleepy that he fell asleep as soon as he lay down. Tina was even more exhausted than before, and her petite body was curled up into a ball as she tugged at Lin's hair with her slender little hands. Her golden wings dimmed as if they had been switched off, and she fell into a deep sleep. Chapter 6:23. And Lin slept soundly for the entire night, and when he woke up in the morning, he was greeted by a faint fragrance that resembled the fragrance of a lotus flower blooming under the moonlight. It was light and refreshing, but it was also extremely alluring. He opened his eyes to find a petite woman lying beside him. She was indeed quite petite. After all, she was only 20 centimeters tall. The woman was lying on her side, and her features were flawlessly beautiful. Every inch of her body was perfect. Her breathing was extremely even, and her eyelashes trembled slightly. Her skin was translucent, and it was even more dazzling than her white dress under the sunlight. She really was beautiful, and Lin couldn't help but admire her beauty for a while longer before slowly rising to his feet. He was about to go to class when he heard the faint sound of singing drifting toward him from the window in the hall. He knew that Xiao Hong was photosynthesizing and singing again. "Xiao Hong, how long has it been since I entered Tina's world?" And Lin opened the window and asked, "La la la." The singing stopped abruptly. "Master, it's been 5 days." Xiao Hong swayed her red head from side to side as she replied in a sweet voice, "Xiaolan also went to look for you, and she applied for a leave of absence for you after discovering your sleeping state." And Lin was quite pleased to hear this. So it had been almost a week. Time sure flies by. However, seeing as Su Xiaolan has already applied for a leave of absence for me, I might as well continue skipping classes. After all, attending classes was nowhere as interesting as watching the creation of a world. And Lin cooked up a kung pao chicken with a frying pan, and an alluring aroma wafted throughout the entire penthouse. Aside from Shui Zhantian, Little Lang, Little Xiao, and Little Lang, who had already gone out to cultivate. All of his beast pets gathered around him, drooling as they stared at the dish in the frying pan, eagerly anticipating the day when it was ready. Even Tina, who was still in her dream, sat up in shock before flying toward Enlin in the direction of the scent. Giant Enlin, are you going to let me sleep? Do you know how conflicted I was just then? Tina grumbled in a daze as she pounced toward the frying pan, and Lin grabbed onto Tina's slender waist. I didn't ask you to wake up to eat. Also, it's not cooked yet. After I'm done, we'll split it evenly. Humph. You're clearly trying to wake me up. You're trying to lure me out of bed. Tina pouted angrily, but her eyes were still focused on the pot. Then continue to sleep. My hypnosis is very good. I can quickly hypnotize you, woof. Dabai raised his paw and chuckled. My lullaby is also very powerful. Do you want to give it a try, little Na? Xiaohong asked in her sweet voice. It was always better to have one less person to share food with. So Little Red and Dabai both looked at Tina with ill intentions. This scared Tina so much that she shrank back onto Enlin's shoulder and shouted for him to stop. As the pet beasts joked around, the Kung Pao chicken was ready. Each of the pet beasts was given a plate of Kung Pao chicken, and they enjoyed it so much that they almost finished licking the sauce on the plate. After a hearty meal, Enlin fed Tina a wood elemental high-rank spirit pill to replenish her energy. After that, he allowed Tina to project his consciousness into the mirror world to observe the development of the world. The world had developed to a point where it was bursting with vitality. There were all types of exotic plants, birds, and beasts, and Enlin was completely overwhelmed. Master, I can only stabilize the flow of time in this world at around 100,000 times the normal flow of time. I won't be able to do it any faster. Tina's voice suddenly sounded. Thus, the development of this world became more and more complete, and the number of species also increased from tens of thousands to over 1 million. Perhaps it was due to the fact that there was an invisible hand controlling this world, but the probability of these creatures mutating and giving birth to new species was very high. In other words, some of these creatures were no longer just barbaric beasts. Instead, they had developed a certain level of intelligence. Their eyes were intelligent, their hearts were calm, and some of them could even use simple tools. Soon, the world entered the era of the giant beasts. The top of the food chain was dominated by massive ferocious beasts. These ferocious beasts were a little like the dinosaurs that Lin knew of. Some of them were burly, some were fast, and some were like locusts. In a short period of time, they dominated the entire world. Sigh, these big guys are so annoying. They can reproduce, but they can also eat. All of these plants and small animals are going to be eaten by them sooner or later. Tina grumbled in a rare display, and Lin smiled. The way the dinosaurs were developing was going to create an ecological imbalance sooner or later. When that time came, the dinosaurs would most likely go extinct due to the lack of food and the harsh environment. This world would eventually adjust in its own way. A thought suddenly occurred to Enlin as he looked at the booming development of the dinosaur race. Tina, can you make the dinosaurs smarter? Smarter? Tina paused for a moment before replying. It's impossible to reach the level of a highly intelligent creature. That's a different level of consciousness. However, if you want to make them more agile and give them the ability to learn, you can achieve it by modifying their genes. Then let's give it a try. And Lin was excited. Also, you can also control their numbers, he added. Oh. Tina obeyed obediently. Thus, the next generation of dinosaurs underwent a mutation. The giraffe-like mother Brachiosaurus gave birth to a baby dinosaur with a thick neck and a large, ferocious mouth. The Brachiosaurus was completely dumbfounded and felt like it had given birth to a fake baby. However, she looked at the other Brachiosaurus mothers next door and discovered that some of them had also given birth to baby dinosaurs like this, so she no longer paid any heed to this. These baby dinosaurs were different from the Brachiosaurus mothers. They had long and slender limbs and were extremely agile. They didn't eat herbivores and hunted all types of animals to eat. After the baby dinosaurs grew up, they became even more picky. A pack of ferocious Tyrannosaurus Rex charged into the pack of Brachiosaurus, and all of the Brachiosaurus mothers fled for their lives. However, a pack of grown-up Brachiosaurus bravely stood up and pounced toward the Tyrannosaurus Rex. This was a brutal battle. The new Brachiosaurus Rex's mouth was even larger than the Tyrannosaurus Rex's mouth, and its bite force was even more terrifying. In the end, the Tyrannosaurus Rex was completely devoured. The older generation of Brachiosaurus Rex stared at the group of grown-up Brachiosaurus Rex with confusion on their faces. The most ferocious Tyrannosaurus Rex had been killed and even eaten by their children. Within a vast river, a female Brachiosaurus Rex was trembling uncontrollably while male Brachiosaurus Rex circled around her with a nervous expression. PFFF. The female Brachiosaurus had laid an egg. The male Brachiosaurus Rex stared at the huge, white egg with confusion in its eyes. Why was there only one egg? Weren't there usually around a dozen eggs? Could it be that it was already too late? At the same time, a pack of shark-toothed dragons with thick and long arms picked up a huge rock and hurled it toward its enemies for the first time in a fierce battle. And Lin looked on with excitement at the development of the dinosaurs. He wanted to see just how much more intelligent dinosaurs could develop. Tina was also very considerate. Even though time was fast-forwarding most of the time, she would occasionally restore the normal flow of time so that Lin could carefully observe the habits and lifestyles of the dinosaurs. Gradually, the dinosaurs developed from a group into a tribe. Not only would the tribes slaughter one another, but even their own brethren would also slaughter one another. Some of the more nimble dinosaurs invented all types of stone tools, some of which even placed stones on their heads or necks as protective gear to prevent their enemies from tearing at them. Soon, dinosaurs that had fused with the vital energy of heaven and earth were born. They were known as dinosaur mutant beasts. Chapter 6:24. When a life form reached a certain level of power, it could even fuse the vital energy of heaven and earth into its body to strengthen its muscles and bones, thereby elevating its life force to a higher level. The first life form in this world that had fused vital energy was born. It was a Tyrannosaurus Rex. This Tyrannosaurus Rex was extremely tall and powerful, and it was able to snap the neck of a shark-toothed dinosaur with a single bite. With its immense power, it quickly became the chief of a Tyrannosaurus Rex tribe and began to conquer the world. As the saying goes, if there is one, there will be two. One by one, dinosaurs that fused with vitality were born. Some creatures like wolves, lions, and crocodiles that happened to eat the corpses of dinosaurs that had fused vital energy were also able to fuse vital energy into their bodies. The structure of this world began to change. It became more and more complex, but also more and more powerful. At this moment, Tina could only accelerate time to around 10,000 times. In the deep sea, ichthyosaurs ruled the seas. They were bloodthirsty and violent, and there was nothing they wouldn't eat. Ichthyosaur mutant beasts like WYRMS that could control water-type spell techniques were also born. Flying dragons soared in the sky. Their bodies were light and graceful, but their wings were as sharp as swords. They tore through the air and flew at low altitudes, and their wings could even slice off the heads of the dinosaurs on the ground. The shock waves released from their mouths could even knock down birds in the distance. They were the rulers of the heavens. On land, all types of carnivorous dinosaurs contended with one another, and battles between chiefs could even shatter a small mountain. This was a spectacular era of dinosaurs, and it was also a grand painting of the development of life. And Lin was completely entranced. Giant and Lin, I feel like the spiritual aura of this world has accumulated enough, so we can attempt to create highly intelligent life forms. Tina's voice suddenly sounded, and Lin shuddered upon hearing this. What? You're saying we can create humans? And Lin was astonished. No. Tina immediately denied. I've already taken in so many souls, so we can create humans first. The other life forms we can create are the races that are related to the life essence of those 9 high-level life forms. They basically represent the highest form of life in their respective races. Due to the fact that their inheritances are complete, their life force genes are extremely outstanding. So it's relatively easy to nurture a life form's body and the race's consciousness. And Lin nodded upon hearing this and didn't object to Tina's decision. Whoosh! Right at this moment, a resplendent light appeared beside him, and Lin tilted his head to the side, and his pupils shrank slightly. He was greeted by the sight of a flawless woman with translucent skin and flawless features. Her white dress fluttered in the wind, and her long golden hair shone beautifully under the sunlight. Her green eyes shone with the luster of a gem, and her face had an extremely enchanting smile. She was like a saintess, yet also like the most perfect angel. Even Lin felt a little infatuated when he saw her. He was a little unsure. Little Na. It's me. The woman smiled charmingly. What's wrong? My appearance hasn't changed, right? Why do you look like you don't know me? And Lin took a deep breath. How did you get bigger? That's right, Tina was now 7 meters tall. Her appearance was like a fairy from the 9th heaven, which made Lin extremely envious. A smug smile appeared on Tina's face as she replied, Because I wanted to become this big, so I became this big. I can become even bigger. In this world, I can do whatever I want. I can do whatever I want. She lifted the hem of her dress as she spoke and twirled gracefully in a circle on the tip of her foot. Her lithe and graceful figure swayed gently as her white dress fluttered in the wind. She was like a peerless lotus flower that had suddenly blossomed. Do I look good? Tina's voice was like spring water as she asked with a smile, and Lin swallowed and nodded. It's beautiful, but why did you appear here? Of course, the feeling of being one with heaven and earth isn't as direct as the feeling of being an individual. I've chosen a few spare spots, and I'm planning to experience them as an individual, Tina replied. Oh, and Lin nodded with a slightly perplexed expression. Then let's go. Tina giggled as she latched onto Lin's hand. She stepped forward, and the space around them instantly transformed. In the next instant, Lin discovered that he had arrived above an extremely unfamiliar ocean. He was given a fright. This method of teleportation was much more badass than spatial teleportation. There were no side effects, and he didn't feel anything either. He had teleported to another place in the blink of an eye. I'll use this ocean to nurture the Spirit Fish Clan and the Heavenly Turtle Tribe, Tina murmured, and Lin blinked. How are we going to nurture them? Nurture them in the water. The Spirit Fish Clan and the Heavenly Turtle Tribe are both amphibious. So let's create a continent first. Tina spread open her hand, and the entire ocean instantly began to churn. Massive waves rose into the air, and an extremely massive continent began to rise from the bottom of the ocean. From a rough estimate, this continent was at least over 500 kilometers wide, and Lin was dumbstruck. He had no choice but to kneel before this mighty figure who had created a continent at her word. And Lin only came to a realization now. Tina was the goddess of creation, the god of creation. In this place, she could do whatever she wanted. But this place is a little barren, and Lin was a little hesitant as he looked at the strange, craggy continent before him. A white light flashed through Tina's eyes. Area time acceleration. Boundless energy fluctuations engulfed heaven and earth as plants began to sprout from the barren continent, quickly transforming it into a lush, green land. And Lin, I'll leave the Spirit Fish Clan ones here. Tina pointed to a spacious piece of land near the ocean, and Lin took a glance at it and nodded. A ball of light exuding extremely powerful energy fluctuations was released from Tina's hand. And Lin could sense this familiar life force fluctuations, and he thought back to the 9 balls of light that he had encountered in Chi Lu City. This ball of light was most likely one of them. Whoosh! The ball of light seemed to have exploded, and an extremely powerful life force energy enshrouded heaven and earth before condensing together. At this moment, Tina was the goddess of creation. Holy light lit up the entire world, and she pointed a finger at an empty space in the air. Over 1,000 translucent, snowy white eggs that contained boundless possibilities of life appeared there, and Lin felt like he knew the answer to the question of which came first, the chicken or the egg, at least in this world. Whoosh! Another burst of extremely powerful life force fluctuations swept forth. A lithe and graceful woman with a red fish tail appeared before Tina and Enlin. Hong Yuji, I'll leave these first-generation spirit fish clan members to you. Tina's words were like a decree from the heavens. The mermaid was not displeased in the slightest. Instead, she bowed her head and spoke in a gentle voice. Hong, you will do her best to nurture our tribe so that we can flourish here. And Lin knew who this woman was. She was most likely the return to void stage mighty figure that the two red-robed elderly men had sacrificed to the fragment of the realm core. He couldn't help but remark, "Isn't this a little too unnatural? It doesn't reflect the spirit of a tribe that is striving to survive in an unfamiliar world." Tina blinked her emerald eyes, and she nodded in agreement. "How about this? You can become a statue for now, and you can only come out when your tribe is in danger." Hong Yuji. Thus, Hong Yuji was transformed into a stone statue by Tina, and she stood at the center of over 1,000 spirit fish eggs. The words Spirit Fish Patriarch had been carved into the statue. When the baby spirit fish were born, they would definitely treat her as a god of creation, the mother of all spirit fish. Perhaps many years later, she would be worshipped by countless spirit fish. Chapter 6, 25. And Lin felt that the so-called gods did not seem to be that big of a deal. After all, there was a woman who could be said to be a supreme deity by his side. She was still his pet beast. The more he thought about it, the more pressure he felt. Tina was already so awesome, but her master was still so lazy. What should he do? And Lin also knew that this was incomparable. Even if he worked hard for another 10,000 years, it would be impossible for him to reach the level of the god of creation. That was not something that could be achieved by relying on talent and strength alone. It required a great opportunity. He thought about it for a moment and completely let it go. He hugged Tina's leg and shouted, "Let's go!" Tina led him to another beach on the continent and released over 1,000 heavenly turtle eggs. She also summoned the return to void stage mighty figure, Priest Gue Win, and transformed him into a statue that wouldn't appear unless he was in dire straits. Next up seems to be the dragon race. Should we release them into the sea? Build a house in the sea for them? What kind of houses do they like? So troublesome, Tina grumbled. There's no need to build a house. Just build a basin for them, and Lin suggested. Just like that, the birthplace of the dragon clan, an extremely simple and crude pit appeared under Lin's suggestion. The statue of the dragon tribe's patriarch was a return to void stage mighty figure by the name of Aochin. We've arrived at the stone tribe. This is a rock golem, and I found a good place as well, Tina said with a wide grin. The stone tribe had one as well, and Lin's heart stirred slightly. Why were all these races so familiar? There were no duplicates, and, Little Ma, let me ask you which mighty figures are the remaining life orbs. They're Holy Leader Fengyu of the Stone Tribe, Flower Night Queen of the Darkwing Tribe, Holy Monarch Wu Zhe of the Holy Martial Clan, Dream Spirit Snake of the Snake Spirit Clan, Sword Sparrow Immortal of the Vermilion Bird Tribe, and Poison Demon God of the True Demon Tribe. What is it, Giantin? Tina asked curiously. As expected, and Lin frowned deeply. Is it a coincidence? Why did it have to be 9 of the 10 Realm Guardian races? What's the 10 Realm Guardian tribes? Tina was confused, and Lin didn't try to hide anything and explained everything that had happened in the Shouyang tomb to Tina. Tina's eyes widened upon hearing this. My God, What a coincidence! But why are there no void spirit tribe living beings? And Lin rubbed the space between his eyebrows. How would I know? It can't be that we interrupted him before he finished, right? Ah. Tina was enraged. Now that you mention it, I really want to capture a void spirit tribe mighty figure. It's killing my obsessive-compulsive disorder. And Lin was speechless at the sight of Tina acting like a little girl. After waiting for her to calm down, the two of them set off again. They found a place filled with stone peaks and released over 1,000 stone tribe eggs. Immediately afterward, Tina constructed another floating island and placed over 1,000 dark-wing tribe eggs upon it. And Lin was a little confused. Aren't the dark-wing tribe mammals? They were probably born directly from their mother's womb, right? Why do we have to use eggs? Tina smiled. This egg of mine can be used to nurture and protect the womb. I can set it to nurture the next generation in place of the mother. Of course, the next generation will be nurtured by the mother herself. What else could Lin say? Tina was someone who dared to do what she wanted. She truly did whatever she wanted. After that, they found a spirit lake and left the snake spirit tribe eggs there. They found a tall mountain enshrouded in clouds and mist and left the holy martial tribe eggs there. In the south, they placed the vermilion bird tribe eggs there. There were massive trees everywhere. In the west, they placed the true demon tribe eggs on a black continent that was rife with mutant beasts. All right, it's all up to them now. Tina clapped her hands with excitement and anticipation on her face. Don't get wiped out by the dinosaurs, and Lin teased. Humph. Tina pouted in an extremely adorable manner. I'm here. If I say they won't be wiped out, then they won't be wiped out. And Lin's lips twitched. You really are a god of creation. I don't need to put on a show. Tina laughed heartily before snapping her fingers. The flow of time accelerated again. Let's see how they develop. 9 different images appeared in the air as she spoke, allowing Lin to observe the 9 different tribes at the same time. Soon, the first batch of highly intelligent creatures in this world hatched and finally broke out of their shells. And Lin looked at the 9 tribes in their infant states. The most adorable tribe was the vermilion bird tribe. The newborn vermilion birds had white, fluffy feathers, and they looked like balls of cotton. There were also faint, golden flames enshrouding their bodies, and their round eyes were extremely bright and mesmerizing, giving onlookers the urge to hold them in their hands. These so-called vermilion birds weren't actually vermilion birds. Instead, they were just birds that possessed the vermilion bird bloodline. And Lin didn't know how much vermilion bird bloodline the vermilion bird tribe had left on the Tai Chu continent. However, the vermilion bird clan being born in this world, when he saw the pure and holy flames, he knew that this was a vermilion bird clan with an extremely pure bloodline. By the way, Giant and Lin, what do the vermilion bird tribe usually eat? Tina asked. I don't really know. But birds usually eat insects, right? Haven't you heard of the saying, the early bird gets the worm? And Lin hesitated momentarily before replying. Tina clapped her hands together and her eyes lit up. That makes sense. Thus, the newborn vermilion birds that ate the flames of heaven and earth were forced to eat the insects gifted to them by the mighty god of creation. As mentioned before, the most adorable vermilion birds were the vermilion birds. As such, the dragon tribe was undoubtedly the ugliest of the bunch. The newborn dragon tribe living beings didn't even have scales, and their tiny bodies squirmed in the water like thick earthworms. Even Tina was feeling a little disdainful upon seeing this. Thus, Tina and Lin teleported to the vermilion bird tribe's base camp. This was a massive bird's nest on a massive tree with many adorable vermilion bird babies resting on it. The two of them held up one baby each, and they played with them with curiosity and elation. And Lin gently stroked the head of one of the baby vermilion birds. The golden flames on its body didn't burn his hand, but it was a little warm. Chirp, chirp, chirp. The baby vermilion bird chirped nervously. Hey, you shouldn't be stroking them like that. You should be doing what I'm doing. Tina's voice suddenly sounded, and Lynn turned to find Tina stroking the baby vermilion bird in a certain direction with a certain amount of force. The baby vermilion bird's eyes narrowed in bliss as it chirped with a hint of elation. Tina also smiled, an exquisitely beautiful woman in a white dress stroking an adorable vermilion bird was such a harmonious and beautiful scene that even Lynn couldn't help but admire it. Elves were the most proficient beings among all living beings, so Lynn wasn't surprised that she was able to do this. However, he sighed with emotion. When the baby vermilion bird was born, it had been hugged by the big boss of this world. He could probably brag about this for the rest of his life. As for the dragon tribe, stop messing around. Who would like to hug an earthworm? Just let them soak in the water. Chapter 6:26. Even though the dragon tribe was neglected due to their attractiveness, Tina wasn't going to let them starve to death. She would still distribute some small fish and shrimps for them to eat. After that, Lynn and Tina went to all the tribes and gave them new student packages before departing with a satisfied expression. As for languages, Tina had intentionally or unintentionally instilled them with the Taichu language and pointed out a way for them to learn. Otherwise, Lynn would have to be completely dumbfounded by the fact that he had to learn a few different types of indigenous languages. Now, the last step is to create a star, Tina said with a smile, and Lynn's heart jolted with shock as he stared at Tina with incredulity. Create stars? Shouldn't there be stars already? Oh, the stars you see in this world are fake. I created them so that the night wouldn't be too monotonous. You told me that the Darkwing tribe needs to absorb the power of the stars to grow, so I have to create real stars, Tina explained. That doesn't make sense. I can clearly sense the power of the stars, and Lynn replied. What you see and feel is only because I want you to see and feel them. That's all. But in essence, they're all fake. Oh, right, even the moon is fake. Tina chuckled. And Lynn, he calmed down, rubbed the space between his eyebrows, and continued. Then what should you do? You have to realize that every single star in the sky is actually an extremely powerful star, which means that every single star is a sun. You want to create a sky full of stars? That's a project I can't even begin to imagine. Also, do you have enough space in your world? Tina wagged a slender finger as a charming smile appeared on her face, and she said, Who told you that a star that possesses the power of the stars has to be the sun? The light of the sun travels through the universe for countless miles and absorbs the energy of the universe to form the power of the stars. However, there is another way, which is to use the essence of the power of the stars to create stars that contain the power of the stars, then hang the stars in the sky not too far away from the continent. Then, I'll set up another rule of this world. All living beings in this world will have their strength constantly reduced once they're more than 1,000 miles away from the surface. As long as their strength doesn't surpass mine, they'll never be able to escape this world. But how can their strength surpass mine? I am the master of this world, ha ha ha. I believe they will get used to this rule and think that this rule is the truth of the world. If a highly intelligent life form were to use a technological creation or some kind of powerful divine ability to observe, they would be able to conclude that the stars are the sun in the universe that gives off light and heat. This is the scene I want them to see. In this way, not only did we suppress their actions, but we also gave them the illusion that the universe is very big and filled with infinite hope. Tina became more and more excited as she spoke, but Lynn was starting to doubt his own life. Fake, it's all fake. The stars were fake, the moon was fake, and even this world was fake. The more he thought about it, the more scared he became. He suddenly thought of Earth. Were the things that people saw what Newall wanted them to see, so that they could see it? After all, no one had really been to the galaxy, so could those things be fake? Then there was the Tai-Chu continent, and Lynn felt like he was being possessed, and the urge to explore and verify his theory was welling up in his heart. Sigh, what a pity. I still have to find an object that contains the power of the stars. Without a reference, I won't be able to create it. Tina suddenly sighed as she spoke, and a look of frustration appeared on her face. And Lin came to his senses, and a thought suddenly occurred to him. I have 2 stardust fruits that I collected from the huge starlight tree in my storage ring. They are imbued with the essential power of the stars, so they should be usable, right? Tina's entire body became excited upon hearing this. That's great. Let's go out first, Giant and Lin. Whoosh! A rush of dizziness ensued, and Enlin returned to his original world. Tina was standing before Enlin, swinging his arm with anticipation on her face. Giant Enlin, where are the stardust fruits? Hurry up and show them to me. Enlin brought out the stardust fruits upon hearing this. After Tina's appraisal, they were usable. Thus, Tina's mirror world became different, and all of the fake stars became real stars. Time passed by, and all of the living beings of the various tribes gradually grew up and began to reproduce. The first generation of dragon tribe, cultivators, gradually grew dragon scales, and their bodies also grew larger and larger as they became the rulers of the sea. They were blessed by the heavens, and each and every dragon was able to fuse the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into their bodies. In other words, during the Tao body stage, they were able to cultivate on their own. Furthermore, they could also control the power of water. After reaching adulthood, even the ferocious and violent dragonfish were no match for them. The pristine white holy martial clan cultivators were even more valiant and skilled in battle as they expanded their territory. They had developed a rudimentary martial Tao from a very young age, and they intentionally sparred with one another as well as taught the next generation. Adult holy martial clan cultivators loved to battle massive tyrannosauruses in order to hone their martial Tao. The most powerful holy martial clan cultivators could already kill a Tyrannosaurus rex with a single punch. Their bodies had most likely already reached the pinnacle of the Tao body stage. The heavenly turtle tribe and the spirit fish clan lived the most leisurely lives. They loved to explore the mysteries of the world, observe the stars at night, derive the principles of all things, and research major unsolved mysteries, such as who they were, where they came from, and why they were still alive. They would also occasionally explore the beauty of nature and invent all types of divination techniques and sorcery techniques. The snake spirit clan lived the most carefree lives. They possessed the ability to communicate with all things, understand all things, and feel all things' emotions. As such, they were always able to strike a favorable impression in the hearts of all living beings around them. They had countless underlings wherever they went, and it could be said that they were the most powerful tribe in the world. The stone tribe lived the most monotonous and boring lives. They very rarely moved, and all they did was stand on the spot in a daze, absorbing the power of the earth and listening to the pulse of the earth. Grass grew on their bodies, and all types of small animals took up residence on their bodies, but they were completely oblivious. Oh, the most active time in their lives was probably when 2 stone tribe cultivators spent the night together. They exercised vigorously for an entire minute, and Lin was extremely envious of this. The Darkwing tribe lived the most leisurely lives. They slept during the day and wandered around at night, basking in the stars. They had nothing to do. Due to the fact that their nest was situated in the sky, all of the living beings on the land seemed to be inferior to them. They referred to themselves as envoys from the heavens, and they would occasionally spread their wings to fly to the land to patrol the mortal world. The Vermilion Bird tribe lived the most freedom. They had almost covered half of the continent, and they roamed the world without any restrictions. Tina was currently quite troubled by the issue of their reproduction. After all of them were so carefree and had never considered the issue of finding a mate. Even now, all of the Vermilion birds were single. In the worst-case scenario, she would have to force them to mate, and Lin was very envious of the Vermilion Bird tribe. They didn't have a boyfriend or girlfriend, but the heavens were willing to give them to them. The tribe that surprised Lin the most was the True Demon tribe. They lived in the harshest environment and faced the largest number of mutant beasts. It could be said that their combat and survival abilities were the most powerful among all the tribes. As for why they were able to survive in that kind of environment, that was Tina's idea. The true demons were clearly antagonists, so she couldn't let them be too happy. These were Tina's exact words. And Lynn was struck by a strong sense of sympathy toward the true demons upon hearing this. What kind of experience is it to have a subjective God? If the true demons were to learn this truth, they would probably cry tears of joy. Aside from their combat and survival abilities, they were also very good at cooking. They could cook and eat anything, and no mutant beast could escape their stomachs. They were extremely similar to the Canton tribe. Perhaps this had something to do with the environment they lived in. They knew how to survive and how to eat. For some reason, and Lin suddenly thought back to the strange illusionary realm in the Shouyang tomb as he watched the development of the true demons. There was also a little demon who knew how to cook there. Was this a coincidence? Chapter 6, 27. In any case, these 9 tribes were all adapting to this world and were able to survive in this world through their own efforts. In the future, Tina and Enlin wouldn't need to intervene anymore. Their arrival brought a new lease of life to this world and also influenced the structure of this world. That's right, the dinosaurs were still the rulers of this world. However, the emergence of these 9 tribes dealt an unprecedented blow to the dinosaurs. As the generations passed, the 9 tribes became more and more powerful. Some of the tribes that were proficient in research, such as the Snake Spirit Clan, Holy Marshal Clan, and Heavenly Turtle Tribe, had even developed basic cultivation methods. However, on the other hand, the dinosaurs' power didn't increase at all. And Lin knew that it was their intelligence that prevented the dinosaurs from becoming more powerful. They weren't highly intelligent creatures, so they couldn't create or learn cultivation methods and divine abilities. They could only rely on their innate talents. As such, some of the most powerful beings among the dinosaurs were lacking, so they could only rely on numbers. At this moment, spirit-nurturing stage, powerful beings had already appeared among the 9 tribes, and the power level of this world had risen to another level. According to Enlin, this world had almost reached the pinnacle of the low magic planes. As the 9 tribes continued to expand, an unavoidable war with the dinosaurs finally erupted. This was an earth-shattering battle that involved the issue of territory and resources. Within a forest in the south, hordes of winged dragons pounced toward a gargantuan green tree. They could sense an extremely powerful vital energy fluctuation emanating from the tree. They loved trees like this, and they loved this forest. Vermilion birds could inhabit trees and change the nature of trees. This group of close to 100 winged dragons was only facing a single vermilion bird. Countless sound waves and air blasts instantly crashed toward the bird, which was enshrouded in white flames. Tree trunks were snapped and leaves were pulverized in the wake of the shock waves. The firebird was fearless. With a soft cry, flames swept out from the sky and collided with the incoming attack. The energy tore each other apart. Then, under the horrified gazes of the hundreds of pterosaurs, the flames broke through the air cannons and quickly enveloped the hundreds of pterosaurs. Blood-curdling cries reverberated through the air as one cooked, winged dragon after another plummeted from the sky. The firebird revealed a look of disdain. After glancing at him, it flew back to the huge green tree and closed its eyes to rest. High up in the sky, and Lin clicked his tongue in wonder as he turned to the woman beside him. As expected of the baby you carried, it's already at the spirit-nurturing final stage. You didn't give it a hack, did you? Humph! Am I such an elf? Tina waved her fists through the air as she glowered at Enlin. Enlin shrugged and looked at the hundreds of images in front of him. These images were all of the battles between the various races and the dinosaurs. In the end, the battle was always one-sided, and the dinosaurs were beaten black and blue. Even if the dinosaurs won the battle, it was through the dragon's sea strategy. There was no advantage at all. For example, in the image, an army of 30 dragons was torn apart by thousands of ichthyosaurs. Before they died, they killed hundreds of ichthyosaurs before they died of exhaustion. Another example was the intelligent dinosaurs who invented all types of stone tools, protective gear, and weapons. However, the Holy Martial clan invented gloves that could draw vital energy out of one's body to enhance one's strength and spell techniques. As a result, weapons were on a completely different level. An adult Holy Martial tribe cultivator could shatter the head of a shark-toothed dragon wearing a stone helmet with a pair of gauntlets on it. The difference in weapons was ultimately a difference in intellect and talent. No, this was a difference in intelligence. Even though the dinosaurs had been enhanced by Tina's aptitude, this was the upper limit of their life force. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't reverse the situation unless they could become highly intelligent life forms. The battle over territory continued for several decades. In the end, the dinosaurs' numbers plummeted, and their territory shrank further and further. The former rulers of the world were no longer glorious and were reduced to second-tier life forms. Now, a new ruler of the world had been born. They were the 9 tribes with high aptitude and aptitude. After they established their position in the world, some sort of change occurred in the world. It seemed to have become more lively and full of vigor. It seemed to be full of vigor and vitality. All right, the spiritual aura value of this world is high enough now. We can start creating humans. Tina's eyes were glowing with excitement and anxiety, and Lynn was also very excited to hear about creating humans. Creating humans. This was the most legendary miracle in the world. No one knew where humans came from, but the humans on Earth were most likely created by Nuwa. Then what kind of being was Nuwa? She was a legendary being that transcended beyond the Tai Chu continent, even more so than the Tao integration stage true gods. No one could describe her exact cultivation base, but it was not an exaggeration to refer to her as a god of creation. Now, Tina was going to do the same thing as Nuwa. How could Lynn remain calm? Then what do we need to prepare? And Lynn asked with excitement. I might need an immortal pill that contains both wood type and spiritual power. Tina looked at Lynn with a hint of unease on her delicate features, as if she was afraid that Lynn would refuse. No problem. And Lynn clapped his hands together before asking, "Is there anything else you need?" Tina faltered slightly, as if she didn't expect Lynn to agree so readily. "Not at the moment. All right, let me out, and I'll get you an immortal pill right away," and Lynn said without any hesitation. Tina looked at him with a grateful expression before placing a soft, warm hand on Lynn's forehead. After a rush of dizziness, Lynn regained consciousness. Tina's hand was still placed on Lynn's forehead, and she slowly opened her eyes with an exhausted expression. "Giant Lynn, I'm going to sleep for a bit. Wake me up when you come back." "No problem." And Lynn hurried out the door and flew toward Do Shui Palace. For hours later, he returned excitedly with a 5th-grade immortal pill in his hand. However, right at this moment, Lynn saw a familiar figure. Su Xiaolan had her hands on her hips as she looked at Lynn with an enraged expression. "And Lynn, you've been skipping classes for close to a month, and it's almost time for the end-of-term exams. So why aren't you coming to class? Even I can't apply for leave for you now. I'm at the most important stage now. So please apply for a few more days," and Lynn said with a slightly sheepish expression. "The most important stage? What are you busy with?" Su Xiaolan's brows furrowed slightly as she stared at Lynn's flushed face. "I'm busy making humans with Tina," and Lynn replied excitedly. Su Xiaolan's body swayed slightly. "Making humans?" "That's right. You didn't expect that, did you?" And Lynn laughed heartily before suddenly feeling a chill run down his spine. "That's right, I really didn't expect that." Su Xiaolan's face convulsed slightly, but she then realized something and asked, "How do you do it?" "Didn't I tell you before that I can project my consciousness into Tina's world?" Right now, her world has already developed to the point where humans can be created. Isn't it exciting to create new humans? And Lin asked excitedly. Su Xiaolan heaved a sigh of relief as she nodded. It is quite exciting. Then go do what you need to do. I'll apply for a week of leave for you at most. After that is the end of term exams, and the homeroom teacher will come to find you. I won't be able to stop you then. Su Xiaolan waved her hand. Thank you, Celestial Maiden Xiaolan. And Lin waved goodbye after receiving her permission, and he couldn't wait to return to his dorm. Geez, in order to see that world make humans, he doesn't even want to look at me. Is it really that fun to make humans? Su Xiaolan murmured to herself before shaking her head and walking toward her dorm. Chapter 6:28. And Lin returned to his bedroom to find Tina sleeping soundly. He hesitated momentarily before repressing his excitement and deciding to let Tina rest for a while. After all, he didn't have to expend any energy to enter the mirror world. But Tina had to accelerate time in that world, which required a lot of energy and would result in a lot of fatigue. After an indeterminate period of time, Tina slowly opened her eyes, which were as dazzling as gems. Huh, you're back, Jian and Lin? Why didn't you wake me up? She spoke in a soft voice, as if she hadn't completely woken up yet. You woke up as soon as I came back. And Lin explained with a smile before tossing the immortal pill to Tina. This is an immortal pill that contains both wood type and spiritual power. Take it. Tina accepted the immortal pill with an elated expression. Then, Jian and Lin, let's start creating humans. And Lin nodded with excitement. He had been waiting for this moment for a long time. And Lin entered Tina's world, and Tina, who had reverted to her human size, also entered with him. At this moment, Tina's flawless features were also filled with a grave expression. The human race and the other 9 tribes were all highly intelligent beings. However, they were actually different. The 9 tribes were superior to humans in terms of lifespan, physical strength, innate abilities, and bloodline power. However, this didn't mean that humans were inferior to them. The human race had one advantage over the 9 tribes, and that was their inventiveness. That's right, humans were very creative and were more adept at drawing on external forces than the 9 tribes. Regardless of whether it was the countless cultivation tools or the technological inventions of the universe, the human race was far superior to the other tribes. This was the conclusion drawn from the Tai Chu continent. It wasn't that the other tribes hadn't invested much effort in tool refinement and technology, but the human race had always stood at the pinnacle of tool refinement and technology. As long as they were at the same cultivation base, the human race would always be more inventive than the other tribes. It was exactly because of this that Tina's plan to create humans was delayed even further than the 9 tribes. She had to wait until the world was developed to its fullest before she could create humans. In her heart, perhaps she had also acknowledged that the human race was slightly more intelligent than the other 9 tribes. This might be the instinct of a world lord. Somehow, she felt that now was the best time to create the human race. They arrived at Qi Lu City, right next to the Black Tower. Tina had already swallowed that immortal pill. Although Lin couldn't see any changes in her, he was sure that Tina's life force was flourishing in the outside world. Just like the 9 balls of light, I also need a template of human life essence to ensure the success rate. Tina turned to Lin as she spoke and asked, "Can I extract a drop of your blood?" And Lin's mouth twitched, and he said uneasily, "Use my life as a template? Could it be a clone? Even if it wasn't a clone, after using my life essence, wouldn't they have my bloodline, and then I would have an entire world of human descendants?" The more he thought about it, the more afraid he became. Tina burst into laughter. "Jian and Lin, it's not what you think. I used your life essence just to feel the human form of life. After that, I'll use the resources of this world to create humans. So it has nothing to do with you. All right, then go get it from outside." And Lin nodded with an uneasy expression. To his surprise, Tina didn't move. Instead, she looked at Lin with a pitiable expression. "What is it?" and Lynn was perplexed. "I just gave it a try." Tina pouted as she said, "Your skin sure is thick, Giant and Lynn. I bit down with all my might, but it didn't even bleed. You should do it yourself." And Lynn, only now did he realize that he possessed the body of the war god. Without his permission, no one could break through his defenses. And Lynn went out and extracted a drop of blood from his body before giving it to Tina. He then entered Tina's world again. This time, Tina was fully prepared. The great Tao of heaven and earth resonated as vital energy rippled through the entire world. Countless living beings looked up anxiously, unsure of what was about to happen. The energy of all things converged on Tina's fingertip, and Lynn's breathing accelerated as he stared intently at Tina's fingertip. Two extremely pure orbs of light appeared on her fingertip, imbued with boundless possibilities and hope, and Lynn instinctively wanted to approach them. "Go." Tina pointed a finger forward, and the two orbs of light landed on a patch of empty ground, where they transformed into a pair of huge white eggs. Boom! The entire heaven and earth seemed to have undergone another transformation as soon as the two eggs appeared. Rainbow light enshrouded the entire sky, imbued with boundless vitality and possibilities. And Lynn's focus, however, was elsewhere. He blinked in confusion. "Why aren't there 1,000 eggs?" Tina rolled her eyes at Lynn. "I don't have the life essence of a return to void stage, mighty figure to guide me. 2 eggs is enough to tire me out." "Oh." And Lynn nodded and eagerly flew over to touch the huge egg that was half the height of a grown man. The egg was smooth to the touch, and it gave off a soft and warm feeling. Tina also flew over. Her eyes were darting about, and no one knew what she was thinking. "Hey, Giant and Lynn, do you think we should make these 2 humans even more perfect?" Tina suddenly asked. "Perfect how?" And Lynn's brows perked up. Intelligence and consciousness naturally can't be adjusted. However, our bodies can be adjusted. We can make their bodies more powerful, modify their genes, eliminate all illnesses, and completely unleash their latent potential. We can also implant boundless knowledge into their bodies so that they'll be born knowledgeable. Tina became more and more excited as she spoke, and Lynn fell silent. Make the human race have such a high starting point? Was that really a good thing? Life was a process of constant evolution, and the higher one's starting point, the easier it would be to progress in the future. However, for some reason, and Lynn was feeling a little conflicted. If they don't have any illnesses or pain, they won't have a determined Tao heart. If they're born knowledgeable, they won't have the desire to explore, and they'll take many things for granted. It's very likely that they'll lose their creativity and imagination. I don't know about other races, but I think if humans are too perfect, they might not be humans anymore. And Lynn offered his opinion, but he didn't give Tina any orders. The final decision was still in Tina's hands. Tina thought about it carefully before giving up on that idea in the end. "So be it. I'll just let nature take its course." These 2 humans are the representatives of the first generation of humans and have received the blessings of heaven and earth. Even though they're under my guidance, they're still born in response to all things, so it's not a good idea for me to interfere. Time accelerated once again. After a period of gestation, the 2 huge white eggs finally hatched, and Lynn was greeted by the sight of 2 extremely adorable children with snowy white skin, black hair, and black eyes. They appeared to be around 3 to 4 years of age, and they surveyed the world around them with curiosity on their faces. They were completely naked, and their bodies were perfectly sculpted. Furthermore, they were able to walk upright as soon as they hatched. A pure and flawless aura emanated from their bodies, making one feel as if they were the most perfect treasures. And Lynn was astonished. How did they become so big? I don't even have to feed them now. Giant and Lynn, why are you always so focused on unexpected things? Tina slapped her own forehead with a resigned expression. "Let's go hug the kids." and Lynn couldn't wait any longer. Tina was also thinking the same thing. She stopped time acceleration and flew toward the two humans within Lynn. Chapter 6:29. The two confused children were clearly very nervous and fearful at the sight of Lynn and Tina, and they involuntarily stumbled back a few steps. "Don't be afraid, we're all good people." Tina smiled, and her voice seemed to be imbued with the power to reassure them. Sure enough, the two little guys were not very nervous and fearful after hearing this. Instead, they looked at Lynn and Lynn with curiosity in their eyes, making them appear especially adorable. And Lynn picked up the little boy, while Tina picked up the little girl with a joyful expression. "Wow, his skin is so white and soft, so adorable." And Lynn couldn't help but praise as he poked the little boy's delicate cheek. The little boy blinked his bright eyes and imitated Lynn's actions as he poked Lynn's cheek, causing Lynn to burst into hearty laughter. Tina was also very fond of the little girl in her arms, and the little girl was sucking on her finger with a ladylike expression. She was very obedient, and she would occasionally smile sweetly as if she was enjoying being held by Tina. "And Lynn, let's give these two children a name." Tina's interest was piqued, and she suggested with a dainty smile. When they first created the 9 races, there were simply too many eggs, so they couldn't be bothered to give them names. However, there were only 2 humans now, so it was more convenient to give them a name. And Lynn thought about it for a moment before suggesting, "How about we call them Adam and Eve?" Adam, Eve. Tina repeated the name before turning to Lynn and asking, "Is there a meaning to it?" There's no meaning to it. It's just a name I came up with." And Lynn waved his hand. "Nice names. Then you'll be called Adam and Eve." Tina looked at the 2 children before her with a smile. She had only just finished her sentence when the great Tao of Tao appeared in the sky again. A strange symbol suddenly appeared on the foreheads of the 2 children. The boy's symbol was sharp and menacing, while the girl's symbol was curved and smooth, and their auras also became more ethereal. Then the runes disappeared and everything returned to normal, and Lynn was startled by this scene. He looked at Tina in shock. "Did you cheat on them?" Tina pursed her lips. "No, I only gave them names. As for the changes after that, it was all a gift from this world," and Lynn blinked. "Aren't you this world?" It's not the same. I'm just an existence with the highest authority in this world, equivalent to being omnipotent. However, I'm still separate from this world. The world is an independent entity," Tina explained as she wagged her index finger. And Lynn looked at the 2 children in front of him and felt that they were quite impressive. In other words, they were blessed by this world. As expected of Adam and Eve, they were born with cheats, and Lynn was looking forward to their growth. These 2 children have only just been born, so their basic combat prowess is the weakest among all of the highly intelligent races. Even though they've already been weaned on milk, we still have to provide them with some food, and Lynn said. Tina thought about this for a moment before waving a hand through the air. Many saplings burst forth from the ground before quickly growing into lush trees in just a few seconds. Immediately afterward, all types of fruits appeared on the trees. The area within a radius of 100 feet was instantly transformed into an orchard filled with the aroma of fruits. And Lynn had already grown accustomed to Tina's power of creation. But why did it feel so familiar when she was building an orchard? "Are there any forbidden fruits in the orchard?" And Lynn asked in a curious manner. "Forbidden fruits? What's a forbidden fruit?" Tina blinked in confusion, and Lynn heaved a sigh of relief upon hearing this. Thank God there are no signs of Adam and Eve eating forbidden fruits. Otherwise, I'm starting to wonder if I'm playing some kind of game. I've also implanted the Tai Chu language into their bodies, so they'll be able to learn everything on their own. After all, it's going to take a long time for all of the major races to unify their languages, Tina continued. And Lynn nodded. He didn't have much to say in this regard. Tina waved a hand through the air, and 2 sets of intricate green garments appeared on Adam and Eve's bodies. The two of them looked at the beautiful garments, and their eyes widened with surprise and elation, as if a door to a new world had just been opened to them. Tina had cast a protective spell technique on the garments. After all, there were only two humans, and if they were to die, they would have to be rebuilt. That would be a lot of trouble, so it was better to give them some extra benefits in the new student gift bag. As for the other races, they didn't receive the same treatment. After all, they only had 1,000 eggs, so it didn't matter if a few died. After that, Lynn and Tina left the scene again. Time passed by quickly, and Adam and Eve lived happily ever after. They treated the orchard as their own home. When they were hungry, they would pluck fruits from the orchard, and when they were tired, they would take a nap beside the tree. Occasionally, they would wander around Chi Lu City, entering all types of shops and playing with all types of furniture. Adam and Eve first viewed the artifacts in Chi Lu City as toys, but as time went on, they began to view them as tools. Toys and tools were only one word apart, but the meaning behind them was completely different. After another year or two, they entered a library and flipped through the toys known as books. Adam and Eve looked at the strange lines on the books, but they seemed to be able to understand what they were saying. This was a very novel experience. The two of them flipped through the books one after another, trying to decipher what they were saying. It was as if they had encountered a clear spring in a desert, and they were so hungry that they forgot to eat or sleep. They really did forget to eat or sleep. They didn't even play with their toys or eat anything. Only when they were about to collapse from hunger did they remember to pluck fruits from the orchard. Toward the end, the two of them even found it troublesome and carried a large bag of fruits into the library. They would eat when they were hungry and continue reading after they were full. Even Lynn was a little impressed by this scene. If Adam and Eve were born on Earth, they would definitely be top students. They would only be lacking the words, "I love learning," carved into their foreheads. Perhaps the desert of thought had encountered an oasis of knowledge, which was why they were so eager to learn. They didn't have a choice in what they read. They flipped through the books along the shelves and began with all types of stories. They were very confused by why all of the stories were so strange, such as when cultivators held a spell formation convention and everyone turned up. They didn't understand the term people, but weren't they the only people in the world? Even though there were many things they didn't understand, that didn't stop them from reading. After reading about folklore, they continued to read books on literature, science, and engineering. After that, they would try to learn from the knowledge in the books. It just so happened that there was no shortage of materials in this city, and there was no shortage of finished products. Their knowledge and worldview were perfected through learning and practice. Thus, they lived like this for several years, and even Lynn was in awe of their perseverance. At around 20 years of age, Adam had become a handsome young man, while Eve's skin was snowy white, and she was as beautiful as a goddess. The two of them continued to study with great eagerness, as if they had a hack that they would never get bored of. One day, Adam pulled out another book according to the order on the shelves. The packaging of this book was very strange. It was yellow. On the old, yellowed cover, there was the outline of a man and a woman embracing each other. Their mouths were pressed together, which was a little strange. There were few large words on the cover: flower appreciation, pornography. Chapter 630. And Lynn had Tina stop the time acceleration with an excited expression. His instincts told him that what was going to happen next was not going to be as simple as it seemed. Within the library, the flower appreciation of erotic paintings? What was this? Could it be a book on floral art and flower appreciation? Adam flipped open the book with a confused expression, upon which he was greeted by the sight of a man and a woman intertwined together. "Eve, come and see what this is." Adam's expression turned pale with fright. Eve made her way over to him, and a fragrant scent wafted through the air. She made her way over to Adam's side, upon which a man and a woman were intertwined in a strange position, and they were both completely naked. "This is—" Her heart rate suddenly accelerated, and she flipped to the second page. On the second page, the man was rubbing the woman's 2 snowy white mounds with his hands. The woman's face was flushed, and her cherry lips were slightly parted as an expression of enjoyment appeared on her face. Her legs were intertwined with the man's. Adam swallowed nervously, and his body felt a little warm as he flipped to the third page. The man in the book had revealed a black metal rod, which he thrust into the woman's opening. It was as if this was the perfect balance of life and death. Yin and yang complemented each other and intertwined with one another. The atmosphere in the room instantly became a little ambiguous. Both of them could hear each other's hearts pounding. Eve flipped to the fourth page. Then the fifth, the sixth. There were different images on each page depicting a man and a woman in a strange position. Adam and Eve's faces became redder and redder as they read on. They felt like the man and woman in the book were fighting. But how could there be enjoyment in a fight? Could this be a dance? No, that wasn't right either. This was most likely a new form of life, a grand and novel form of interaction between a man and a woman. Before they knew it, they had finished reading the book with a yellowish cover. Adam and Eve looked at each other, and a peculiar atmosphere began to spread throughout the room. Eve's face was as red as a seductive apple, and she was completely oblivious to the fact that she was being seduced. However, Adam saw this, and he swallowed before speaking in a hesitant manner. "How about we give it a try?" "Let's try," Eve replied in a voice as soft as a mosquito. "We're all reading books that combine theory and practice anyway. Now that we've learned the theory, we naturally have to practice as well." When Adam heard that, he immediately felt that it made sense. They had sacrificed themselves for the sake of great knowledge. Since they had learned it, they naturally had to put it into practice. They weren't doing anything strange. Adam's nervousness was greatly relieved by this thought, and he took off the clothes that God had given him, and slowly began to take off the clothes of Eve. Her jade-white and exquisite body was exposed in front of Adam, causing his body to instinctively react. It was a very strange reaction. Eve blushed all the way to her ears at the sight of Adam, but her eyes were shimmering with a seductive light. "Let's start from the first page," Adam said with a serious expression as he wrapped his arm around Eve's slender waist. "All right." Eve nodded in agreement. Adam carefully rubbed Eve's 2 soft, snowy mounds, and the cherry at the center of the mounds was also gently touched by Adam, eliciting a series of soft moans from Eve. Adam also kissed Eve's soft, pink lips and sucked on them with all his heart. The two of them became more and more passionate, and they had already reached a point where they couldn't control themselves anymore. They were completely relying on their instinctive reactions. Finally, Adam entered Eve's body. Eve suddenly let loose a pained cry as tears welled up in her eyes. Adam was given a massive fright, and he almost wilted from fright. "What's wrong?" "It hurts." "Why does it hurt so much?" Wasn't the woman in the painting supposed to be very happy? Eve's brows furrowed. Adam looked down to find that he was bleeding, and his legs gave out from under him as tears began to flow down his face. "Eve, I'm sorry, it's all my fault. I made you bleed." Eve's features paled slightly as she looked down, but she still gritted her teeth in the end. "It's all right, Adam. Let's continue. I think I can still hold on." "Really?" Adam was a little intimidated. "I know what that thing is. It's already broken anyway, so it's all right." A comforting smile appeared on Eve's face, and her smile became even more alluring. Adam couldn't help but pounce toward her again. For the sake of knowledge, for the sake of learning, they were willing to be fearless, even if they had to bleed. Both Eve and Adam were touched by their own spirit. After that, they engaged in a series of intense and passionate practical activities. As the saying went, hoeing rice at noon, and sweat dripped down into the soil. Who would have thought that every grain of rice would be eaten in the shade? Eve's long and slender legs were wrapped around Adam's waist, and her breathing was rapid and ragged. Adam's waist was slender, and his hands were light as he strummed a zither. Eve gradually entered a state of euphoria, and the spring tides were even as the bright moon rose above the sea. Adam became more and more courageous as the battle progressed. Silver bottles were broken, and water gushed forth. In the end, the two of them reached a state of great harmony, and they experienced the blissful moment of learning. Adam and Eve hugged one another, panting heavily as they looked at one another with a smile. I feel like we didn't do enough practice. We didn't even get to try the last few pages of the book. Adam was a little disappointed. It's all right, we can continue tomorrow. Eve's face was flushed with excitement. This was the first time she had felt that learning could be so exciting and special. Adam was silent for a moment before replying, "How can learning be delayed? Waiting for tomorrow is a waste of time. I can still continue." "Huh, we're going again." Eve was surprised. "Learning? Are you scared?" A faint smile appeared on Adam's face. "Humph, who's scared? Let's continue." Eve was not convinced. Thus, the two of them engaged in a battle again, outside the library. Tina's fair and delicate face blushed when she saw this. She spat and said in a charming voice, "How shameless!" And Lynn's lips twitched upon hearing this. Who was it that had just witnessed the entire battle in shock and fury? He had initially wanted to protect the purity of the little fairy's heart and prevent Tina from witnessing that scene. However, Tina turned him down with a righteous expression. She was only concerned about the development of the human race. She was clearly enjoying herself now, but she was scolding Adam and Eve for being shameless. Adam and Eve were also quite pitiful. This was clearly a normal interaction between a man and a woman, but they were scolded by the so-called God. To be honest, and Lynn was also quite envious and displeased. He had lived for over 20 years, but he had never experienced something like this before. How could Adam and Eve have experienced something like this before him? Sigh. If everything went according to plan, he would probably have to endure for over 90 years. With this in mind, and Lynn was struck by a sense of sorrow. Just like that, the Adam and Eve of this world had accomplished the first feat in human history. This was not because of the forbidden fruit. Instead, it was because of a yellowed book. Chapter 631. Adam and Eve had always been very close to each other, so it wasn't surprising that an erotic book had opened the door to a whole new world for them. As the saying went, the meeting of the golden wind and the jade dew was far more beautiful than anything else in this world. The two of them had only progressed from being close friends to lovers, but their lifestyle didn't change much. The only difference was that they now had the opportunity to read a porn book. The two of them continued to read, learn, and practice in the library. They were both very good at learning, and Lynn felt like this was how humans should be. Adam and Eve found seeds in the granary and tried to sow all types of crops. They also didn't eat fruits all day long. Instead, they found a kitchen and cooked their own food. That was the first time they tasted cooked food. They also knew how to use tools to cut down the surrounding trees to make all types of wooden products. Later on, they found out that what was recorded in the little yellow book should be the legendary sexual intercourse. The two of them naturally became husband and wife, but they didn't know how to perform the wedding ceremony. They were the only two people left in this world, and they had no parents. Also, all of the people mentioned in the book had disappeared, so they really couldn't perform the wedding ceremony. Adam, do you think our parents were the ones who held us when we were born? Eve was looking at biological genetics, which actually explained the principle that close relatives could not marry from a hereditary point of view. If their parents were the same and they were brother and sister, then they would be in big trouble. With this in mind, Eve turned to the man beside her with a nervous expression. "That's impossible, Eve. Have you forgotten the scene in our dream? That woman had golden wings, and her hair was also golden. She was from a completely different race than us. And that man wasn't even as handsome as me. From a genetic perspective, how could they have given birth to perfect people like me and you?" Adam was holding a book on genetic transmission in his hands as he spoke in a calm and collected manner. outside the library, and Lin immediately rolled up his sleeves and was about to charge in and beat someone up. I'm not as handsome as you. Today, I will let you know why flowers are so red. However, Tina stopped him with a smile. Giant and Lin, Adam is right. He really is more handsome than you. Handsome. And Lin was exasperated. He glanced at Adam's handsome face in the library pavilion and said angrily, "Handsome my ass. He doesn't have my temperament. In this world, temperament is the most important." But he only said that he's more handsome than you. He didn't say that he has a better temperament than you. Why are you so angry? Tina blinked her beautiful eyes as she looked at Lin. And Lin faltered slightly upon hearing this. That's right, why am I so angry? Wait, something doesn't seem right. Time continued to accelerate, and Adam and Eve learned more and more knowledge. Before long, Eve began to conceive, and Adam took on the role of a good husband. After 10 months of pregnancy, she gave birth in one day. Adam was busy delivering a baby. He had the theoretical knowledge, but it was his first time putting it into practice. Finally, this world welcomed its first natural human being, and it was a boy. Wah. Adam, it hurts so much. I didn't think that giving birth would be so difficult. Can we not have any more children in the future? Eve sobbed as she spoke. All right, I'll listen to you. Adam nodded with a firm expression. His heart was actually aching for Eve at the sight of her sobbing. Adam loved Eve, so he didn't want her to suffer like this anymore. And Lin and Tina were both extremely nervous upon hearing this. Calm down, you guys. If they didn't continue to give birth, the human race was going to go extinct. Adam, let me hold the baby, Eve said in a feeble voice. Adam hesitated momentarily before placing the baby in Eve's arms. Eve held the baby in her arms, and a warm smile appeared on her face as she listened to the baby's crisp cries. The gloomy expression on her face instantly disappeared, and she appeared to be a lot more radiant and enchanting. Adam, this baby is so cute. Let's have more children in the future. Eve smiled. Huh. Adam faltered slightly upon hearing this, and he nodded at the sight of Eve's serious expression. All right, I'll listen to you. However, he was grumbling internally. Are women always so fickle? And Lin and Tina heaved a collective sigh of relief upon hearing this. The threat of the human race going extinct had finally been averted. Adam, look at this baby. This is what a newborn baby looks like in the books. A perplexed expression suddenly appeared on Eve's face. But I think back to when we were born, we were already very big, and we didn't look like this baby at all. Why is that? Perhaps. Adam couldn't think of a reason either, so he gave a perfunctory reply. Perhaps we're special. We're life bestowed upon us by the heavens, and we're mighty beings. Eve was quite amused by Adam's words, and she was able to set aside her doubts for now. Time flew by. Soon, Eve gave birth to 9 children, 5 boys and 4 girls. After that, Eve and Adam were unable to have any more children, no matter how hard they tried. Tina wasn't the one who had interfered in this matter. She wanted nothing more than for Eve to have more children. This was most likely the will of the heavens. The 9 children formed 4 pairs of couples, and one of them was a bachelor. Eve was a little concerned. She still remembered that it was stated in a book that close relatives were not allowed to marry. However, that mysterious woman had recently appeared in her dreams and told her that she had already eliminated the negative effects of inbreeding, but she didn't know whether that was true or not. In the end, Adam discovered a strange book in one of the compartments of the library. There was a line of golden text on the cover of the book. Great Purity Body Refinement Mantra. After flipping through the book, his expression turned pale with fright. He had finally found the legendary cultivation method. This was the cultivation method that could allow one to ascend to immortality, the cultivation method that was mentioned in countless books. From then on, the human race finally embarked on the path of cultivation. In other parts of the world, the 9 tribes had already slowly figured out a way to enhance themselves through cultivation. almost all of them could cultivate, and powerful beings of the spirit nurturing stage also began to appear. The dinosaurs were once the rulers of the world, but they were already beginning to doubt their very existence, and their sphere of influence was on the wane. They had once ruled over the sea, land, and air, but they were now forced to live in places where vital energy was not as abundant, and they became the trial targets of the 9 tribes. This was truly a pitiful change. They began to discover that aside from their slightly more muscular bodies, they didn't seem to have any other strengths. Among the 9 tribes, the Dragon tribe, the Darkwing tribe, and the True Demons began to develop complacency. They thought that they were invincible, and there was no point in fighting the dinosaurs anymore, so they began to look elsewhere. Due to some conflicts, the tribes began to tear each other apart. In the end, conflict erupted, and a war broke out between the 9 tribes. Look at how smug they are. Do they really think they're invincible? Tina pursed her lips with displeasure on her face. It was quite clear that she was very disdainful toward these disharmonious battles. That's not a bad idea. The more battles they fight, the more breakthroughs they'll make. And Lin didn't really mind, as he spoke with a smile. They love battles so much. Tina's lips curled up into a smile. Then I'll let them fight to their heart's content. A sense of foreboding welled up in Lin's heart. What do you want to do? Aren't they bored out of their minds? Then I'll create an antagonist for them. Tina chuckled. Chapter 632. Create a supervillain? And Lin stared blankly at Tina before coming to a realization. She was the big boss of this world, the kind of big boss who could do whatever she wanted. So creating a supervillain didn't seem like a big deal to her. How do you plan to do it? And Lin couldn't help but ask. I haven't thought about it yet. I can't create highly intelligent creatures. Tina tapped her chin with a thoughtful expression. However, we can use the resources of this world to create monsters that are more powerful and stupid. Do you have any good ideas? And Lin was naturally very excited to be able to participate in the grand undertaking of creating villains, and he also began to ponder the matter. He thought for a moment before replying. As villains, they have to have a source, a reason, and a goal. That's easy. The source would be a gate of hell in the northern part of this world, and the villains would come out from there. As long as the 9 tribes seal the gate of hell, they'll be able to win the war. Tina smiled. As for the reason and goal, Tina fell silent, as if she was trying to think of a good reason. She pondered for a moment before suggesting, how about we make it so that the other world is about to be destroyed, so they can only choose to come over and conquer this world? No, that's too perfunctory. Besides, conquering the world is too cliché, and it'll also destroy the environment. And Lin immediately shook his head in rejection. Why don't we make the villains hunters of highly intelligent life forms? They belong to some kind of cosmic tribe that can absorb the power of highly intelligent life forms to enhance their own power. They come from the stars in order to devour all of the highly intelligent life forms in this world in order to become more powerful. This kind of strengthening ability can avoid the tragedy of dinosaurs being too stupid and have limitless potential. Furthermore, they won't destroy the environment for no reason, which is perfect for a supervillain. Tina nodded in agreement and gave Lin a thumbs up. Very good, let's do that. And Lin's interest was piqued. As for the name, let's call them spirit-engulfing beasts. Then, the initial power level was set to be around the 5th stage Tao body, with the most powerful being not exceeding the spirit-nurturing intermediate stage. The extent to which one's power increased was related to the strength of the highly intelligent beings they devoured. Reproduction is the most important, as it will directly affect the balance of power. As for appearance as an antagonist, of course I have to be darker. It's best if I have claws and a big mouth. My spells also have to be dark and bloody. It's not good to be too bright. Tina nodded in response to Lin's suggestions and didn't refuse any of them. As long as Master was happy, she was the boss of this world. If she wasn't happy with the villains, she could always create more in the future. This spirit-engulfing beast would be her first lab rat. Not long after, in the northernmost region of Tina's world. Rumble. As the earth quaked and the mountains swayed, a pitch-black gate that was over 1,000 feet tall appeared in this world. An evil aura spread out from within, turning the land within a radius of 1,000 feet into black soil. The life force of all living beings was instantly sucked dry. Then, a large group of black, strangely shaped monsters ran out, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Wah! Howl! Howl! Ba ba! I want to eat. I want to eat those smart brains. Let's go. I heard there are brains to eat in the south. A horde of inky black monsters emerged from the gate of hell, and there were over 10,000 of them. All of them rushed toward the south in groups with expressions of villains on their faces. Furthermore, you're not mistaken. They can all communicate in simple language. This was already the limit of Tina's IQ boost. The supervillains, the spirit-engulfing beasts, had finally stepped onto the stage of this world. Giant and Lynn, I'm really tired from creating things out of thin air this time. I might need to rest for a while. Tina's eyes were misty as she wrapped an arm around Lynn's arm and placed it on his shoulder as she spoke in a mellow voice. Tina had created all of these things out of thin air, so it naturally required a lot of energy to do so. Furthermore, she had accelerated time for so long, so it was only natural that she was feeling exhausted. And Lynn could feel the soft and warm sensation on Tina's arm, then looked at her struggling expression, and he couldn't help but sigh with emotion. So, even the heavens could be this tired. And Lynn was not displeased in the slightest by seeing Tina like this. Instead, he felt a lot more reassured. Then let's go back and rest. And Lynn smiled. All right, Giant and Lynn. Tina had been waiting for Lynn to say this. She waved a hand, and the two of them disappeared from this world at the same time. And Lynn opened his eyes and was greeted by the sight of his familiar bedroom. Tina yawned before swallowing a blood spirit pill. Don't tempt me with delicious food. Let me wake up on my own. She flew over to Lynn's pillow as she spoke, pulled up the blanket, and fell into a deep sleep. And Lynn wasn't all that tired, so he decided not to sleep for now. He had to ask Xiao Hong how many days had passed. Xiao Hong, stop singing. Hurry up and tell me how many days have passed. And Lynn picked up a little red flower with a curious expression. Xiao Hong's singing had been interrupted, and she glared at Lynn. It's already been 7 days. And Lynn nodded. A thought then occurred to him, and he yelled, Holy F asterisk CK! You're holding a flower, not a blade of grass, Xiao Hong corrected with a disdainful expression. And Lynn was in no mood to bicker with Xiao Hong. He remembered that the end-of-term examinations were commencing today, and he couldn't give up on this opportunity. His underlings were still waiting for him in the dark marshlands. With this in mind, Lynn immediately activated his voice transmission talisman and sent a message to all of his beast pets and disciples. I'm going to the dark marshlands to fight the blood tribe. Those of you who want to go, hurry up and sign up. I'll only give you 10 minutes to think about it. Dark marshlands? I haven't been away from home for a long time. I want to go, Woof. Dubai was the first to reply. As expected of true love, and Lynn was very pleased. I'm not going. I heard that the sunlight there isn't very good, and it stinks. Xiao Hong shook her red head with a lazy expression, and Lynn wasn't expecting her to go anyway, so he wasn't moved in the slightest. Master, are you finally going to conquer the world? It's a pity that I'm at a critical juncture in helping Xue Zhantian make a breakthrough, so I can't get away. The white scale wolf god sighed with a forlorn expression. Master, can you take me with you when my fur is as sharp as a knife? Xue Zhantian offered, and Lin, it looked like the two of them couldn't find the time either. Also, what the hell was this about his fur being as sharp as a knife? Master, I want to go. Xiao Zai's excited voice sounded. Big brother in. I haven't been active in a long time either. I want to go this time as well. Xiao Chao's voice sounded. All right, the members were confirmed. Dabai, Xiao Zhe, Xiao Chou, and Tina. Tina didn't say anything. Why did she have to go? If she didn't say anything, it would mean that she was agreeing. A gratified smile appeared on Lin's face. This was a very complete lineup. He spoke into the voice transmission talisman. All right, go home and gather. We're going to the dark marshlands together. Chapter 633. The dark marshlands bordered the Kingdom of the Nine States and was located in the southwest region of the Kingdom of the Nine States, only about 150 kilometers away from the Gem State. And Lin contacted Su Xiaolan through the sound transmitting talisman and learned that their class had arrived at Gem State. Su Xiaolan found an excuse for Lin, saying that he was in seclusion for a major breakthrough in his realm. After knowing the situation, the head teacher acquiesced to his request for leave. After all, the school was very tolerant of such situations. And Lin summoned Dabai, Xiao Zhe, and Xiao Chou. Then he carefully wrapped Tina in a small quilt and held her in his arms. Then he flew into the sky on his dog. He wanted to teleport to Gem State through the school's teleportation array. The Gem Province was a place worthy of reminiscence. In the past, he and Su Xiaolan had met again in Xixia City of the Gem State, and Su Xiaolan had become Dao companions. There they had spent the ordinary time together, and there were also the amazing Nirvana rebirth of Su Xiaolan. Many beautiful and unforgettable memories were there. The place Lin was headed to was Huang Quan City of the Gem State. It was a place that was completely different from the peaceful Xixia City. It was a place that was filled with blood and slaughter, and battles between the blood tribe and human armies were frequent. It was one of the most intense battlefields between the Kingdom of the Nine States and the Dark Marshlands. As for the war between the blood tribe and the Kingdom of the Nine States, the blood tribe was definitely going to take the blame. If it weren't for the fact that the vampires couldn't control their impulses and liked to drink large amounts of human blood, humans wouldn't have fought the vampires. Many human cities had been destroyed by the blood breeds. In the eyes of humans, the blood breeds were demons in human skin. Of course, the vampires weren't just targeting humans, but all highly intelligent life forms as well. Yes, the blood of all highly intelligent life forms was the target of the blood tribe's consumption. They were like addicts who couldn't stop sucking blood. Even if they had to pay with their lives, they would struggle endlessly. To be honest, even Lin felt like it was a miracle that the blood tribe was still alive on the Tai Chu continent. Their vitality was especially strong, so it was not easy to kill them all. This might be one of the reasons. Another reason was that their territory was too dirty. The deeper one went into the dark marshlands, the more corrosive it would be to living beings. It was said that the core region could even corrode the Tao of all creation. Even Tao integration stage true gods were extremely disdainful of such a terrifying place. Perhaps it was because of this geographical advantage that they were able to do as they pleased. In Yellow Spring City, there was an extremely majestic city wall that stretched endlessly on the black land. The surface of the city wall was covered with white, solid mercury. Under the sunlight, it shone with a strange radiance. It was like an incomparably huge silver waterfall that divided the heavens and the earth. It was extremely spectacular and beautiful. It was said that the mercury, which had been enhanced by immortal spells, could suppress the power of the weaker blood clan to a certain extent. Otherwise, they wouldn't have built such a thing on such a large scale. In the sky, a huge white dog broke through the clouds and gazed at the majestic city from afar, clicking its tongue in wonder. Even Xiao Chou couldn't help but exclaim, "Big Brotherin, the place we're going to protect this time is a lot more majestic than the Ding and city we went to 2 years ago." Of course, in the past we were dealing with brainless mutant beasts, but now we're dealing with highly intelligent and ferocious mosquitoes. And Lin replied with a matter-of-fact expression, "Big Brotherin, don't you have a few underlings here? When are you going to call them out?" "Woof!" Dabai interjected with an excited expression. "Them. Let's just leave them be for now." An expectant expression appeared on Lin's face as he said, Cassidy is the sect leader of the Ling Shui sect, Merlin is the palace leader of the Soul Blood Palace, and Tobias is the Grand Elder of the Blood Tribe Divine Disc League. All of them have first-rate Blood Tribe forces under their command. It's not a good idea to call them out on our own, so we have to play it by ear. And Lin knew that he couldn't allow them to give themselves away in a situation like this. Some things had to be planned out slowly. Big Brother and Lin was riding on Debai's back as he flew through the air. At this moment, there were already a few students on the city wall waving their hands excitedly. There was a beautiful young woman with short black hair, a burly man, a scholarly-looking man waving a fan, and a busta woman. And Lin was greeted by the familiar faces of his old teammates, and he waved with a smile. Hey, long time no see. Miao Tian, Luo Zipping, Zhong Yongyan, Sun Xinglian. Debai landed on the city wall with a majestic expression. Miao Tian ran over to Debai with a dainty smile and stroked Debai's head. Debai, it's been a long time since I've eaten stuffed buns that you ignored. Do you still have any? Yes. 10,000 spirit stones per steamer, woof. Debai snapped. Miao Tian pursed her lips. So stingy. Big Brother you haven't come to class for so long. What are you busy with? Zhong Yongyan waved his fan with a graceful demeanor. An enigmatic smile appeared on Lin's face. As for me, I'm busy creating a world, of course. Creating a world? Everyone instantly fell silent as they stared at Lin with wide eyes. Big Brother I still want to ask, what do you mean by creating a world? Luo Zipping couldn't help but ask. He felt like he might have misunderstood this term, so he wanted to confirm it again. It means exactly what it says, I'm creating a world. And Lin nodded with a solemn expression. Gasp! The four of them drew a sharp intake of breath as they stared at the man in front of them with shock and reverence. A man who could create a world. So bad *SS. And Lin was just about to continue gloating when a pleasant voice suddenly sounded from behind him. And Lin, you still know to come over? He turned around to find a lithe and graceful woman with skin as fair as suet jade looking at him with a hint of a smile on her face. And Lin's enigmatic expression instantly disappeared as he inched closer to the woman with a fawning expression. Celestial Maiden Xiaolan, you're already here. How could I not come over? Let me explain. Miao Tian and the others were just beginning to feel a strong sense of reverence toward Lin. But now they saw the man they revered inching closer to Su Xiaolan with a fawning expression on his face. The image of him in their hearts began to crumble. Big Brother has changed. Zhong Yongyan shook his head and sighed. Henpecked. Miao Tian rolled her eyes. Luo Zipping scratched his head. Are we still following him? A starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Besides, Big Brother didn't starve to death. He's just a little timid in front of classmate Xiaolan. Sun Xinglian spoke in a cold voice. After a short discussion, the four of them decided to continue following Lin. During their first year in university, they were fortunate enough to latch onto Lin's coattails and did very well, even receiving the inheritance of the Purple Star Ruins. Now they had all progressed to the spirit nurturing stage and were ranked in the top 30 on the Immortal Rankings board. Even though this had something to do with their aptitude, it was undeniable that Lin also had a lot to do with them. Hence, they were determined to latch onto Big Brother and's coattails this time. Chapter 634. The central region of the dark marshlands was different from the perilous Black Earth continent. This place was different from what many people imagined it to be. It was described by outsiders as the most terrifying and vile place in the world, but it was as mesmerizing as a holy land. White cranes flew above this holy land, chirping joyfully in the blue sky. Divine mountains over 10,000 feet tall rose from the ground and pierced into the clouds. Spiritual ripples surged through the air. Rare spirit beasts roamed the divine mountains, and all kinds of spirit flowers and spirit medicines bloomed on the ground. They glowed brilliantly and decorated the earth with a vibrant array of colors. Countless waterfalls flowed down from the divine mountains like silver dragons, shaking the heavens. Vital energy lingered here, like white silk, dazzling and elegant. Iridescent light flowed in the sky, creating a beautiful scene. Anyone who came to this place would be stunned by this immortal atmosphere. They would never believe that such a holy and majestic scene could appear in such a vile place. At the peak of the tallest divine mountain, there were no sharp peaks. Instead, there was only a peak that looked as if it had been sliced by a heavenly sword. At the very center of the peak, there was a statue that was over 1,000 feet tall and was completely red. The statue was of a handsome, scholarly man. He held a book in his right hand and a skull in his left hand. It was a rather strange sight. However, it was precisely this slightly strange man who had a frighteningly powerful identity. This was because he was the Blood Tribe Patriarch, the most supreme being of the Blood Tribe. At this moment, there were 36 beings with extremely terrifying auras standing before the statue of the Blood Tribe Patriarch. All of them had golden hair and crimson eyes. They wore red robes and wore solemn expressions. Only these supreme beings who had already reached the return to void stage had the right to stand at the peak of the divine mountain. Huge rocks floated in the air around the peak of the divine mountain. They were like small, flat continents. Standing on top of these rocks were powerful beings of the Blood Tribe in black robes. There were over 100,000 of them. Once this force was mobilized, they could even flatten any first-rate power on the continent. Right now, most of the most powerful beings of the Dark Marshlands had gathered here because they were about to hold a sacred ceremony to determine the holy disciple of the Blood Tribe. The holy disciples of the Blood Tribe possessed an extremely revered status. In fact, their status was on par with that of the Blood Tribe's Tao integration stage mighty figures. In fact, the amount of authority and resources they possessed even surpassed that of the Blood Tribe's Tao integration stage mighty figures. There was no other reason than that he was the inheritor of the Blood Ancestors' power. Emperor Yi Deng stood beside the statue of the Blood Patriarch, and he looked at the 36 holy disciple candidates with a profound gaze. There seemed to be a boundless sea of blood surging behind him. Those who were slightly weaker would fall into madness as if they were being devoured by thousands of demons just by looking at him. Thus, apart from the 36 Blood Tribe return to void stage mighty figures, the hundreds of thousands of Blood Tribe cultivators standing on the floating rocks all instinctively avoided Emperor Yi Deng's gaze. "Hey, who do you guys think will win the holy disciple selection this time?" A black-robed Blood Tribe member asked in a low voice. Who else could it be? Emperor Yi Deng's son, Layden. He was a super mighty figure at the return to void pinnacle stage. Apparently, the higher one's cultivation base is the more the Blood Patriarch appreciates their bloodline. As such, the holy disciple of the Blood Tribe has to be Layden. A black-robed Blood Tribe female looked up at a handsome man standing at the summit of the divine mountain with a scorching expression as she spoke without hesitation. Another male beside her disagreed. If we're comparing cultivation bases, Layden is still far from the top. Ada is an experienced cultivator at the return to void pinnacle stage, and I've heard that her Tao is already extremely clear. She's only half a step away from the Tao integration stage. Her chances of becoming the holy disciple are even greater than Layden's. Humph, what do you know? Layden's blood is clearly pure. Who is the one who said that the higher one's cultivation base is, the more the Blood Patriarch appreciates their bloodline? Why are you talking about the purity of one's blood now? That's right. Have you tasted it before? Judging from your expression, you've probably tasted it before. Haha, you guys? The female gritted her teeth in rage at the ridicule she was receiving. The entire place was instantly filled with a joyous atmosphere. Similar discussions were taking place elsewhere as well. However, most of the discussions were focused on Yi Deng and Ada. Regardless of whether it was their cultivation bases or the power of their bloodlines, they were the most powerful among all the candidates. Thus, they became the hot topic of discussion. Emperor Yideng also turned to look at his son, and his gaze swept past him. His gaze appeared to be nonchalant, but his heart was filled with anticipation. If Layden really did receive the acknowledgement of the Blood Patriarch, then it would only be a matter of time before he became his equal. In fact, there was even a chance that Layden would surpass him. When that time came, the father and son would be able to unite and dominate the entire continent. They would definitely be able to push the Blood Tribe to new heights and become a legend that would be passed down for countless years to come. Emperor Yideng was getting a little excited just thinking about this. He had been waiting for this day for a long time. Layden was actually even more excited. His only opponent right now was Ada. Ada's cultivation base was higher than his, but he had a good father. His father's bloodline was extremely pure, and he even possessed the bloodline of the Blood Patriarch. Thus, his bloodline wouldn't be too bad either. At the very least, his bloodline was related to the Blood Patriarchs. This meant that he had a natural advantage over Ada. Thus, he had the highest chance of winning. As for the other Blood Tribe return to Void Stage mighty figures, they were just there to accompany him. Their objective here was to highlight his strength, to highlight his position at the pinnacle among all the experts. Among the 36 Blood Tribe mighty figures, there were 3 that Enlin was very familiar with. They were Cassidy, Merlin, and Tobias. Cassidy wore a bored expression as she stared up into the sky with her bright crimson eyes. If this were in the past, she would most likely be looking up at Layden with reverence. After all, Layden was such an exceptional talent among the Blood Tribe. However, Layden was less attractive to her than a drop of her master's blood. Her mind was filled with thoughts of her master, Holy Blood. Sigh. I wonder when I'll be able to see her master again. Cassidy's exquisitely beautiful features were filled with melancholy, and those who didn't know her would think that her lovesickness was acting up again. However, in reality, she was suffering from a blood addiction. If it weren't for the fact that this holy disciple confirmation ceremony was a mandatory ceremony for all Blood Tribe mighty figures who didn't have a special mission, she wouldn't have come here to join in on the fun. Merlin and Tobias were also quite displeased. They had already received news that their master was coming to the dark marshlands, and their morale was already very high. They wanted to exchange their battle accolades for holy blood, so they didn't want to waste their time here. In the sky above, a certain nomological chain suddenly snapped. Boom! A gargantuan crimson vortex began to engulf the entire sky. It was boundlessly deep, and it was capable of drawing one's soul into it. All of the Blood Tribe cultivators, regardless of whether they were black-robed or red-robed Blood Tribe mighty figures, felt as if their minds were about to be sucked into the crimson vortex in the sky. A Tao integration stage mighty figure enshrouded in a divine light emerged from the vortex before nodding at Emperor Yideng. Emperor Yideng nodded with a smile before waving a hand through the air. The Blood Tribe Holy Disciple Selection begins now. Chapter 635. Emperor Yideng announced the commencement of the Holy Disciple Selection, and everyone fell silent. This was the most sacred moment. If they still dared to whisper to each other, then they should be prepared to be slapped to death by the Tao integration stage Yideng. Blood Patriarch, please select the next holy disciple. Emperor Yideng spoke with a solemn expression. The Blood Tribe Tao integration stage mighty figure in the sky produced an extremely black drop of blood from a black vial. As soon as the blood appeared, an extremely terrifying aura began to spread as if it was going to crush the heavens and earth. All of the Blood Tribe members felt as if a supreme being was looking down on them. The absolute suppression of the primordial bloodline and the absolute suppression of the realm caused them to lower their heads deeply. They didn't even have the courage to raise their heads. Without a doubt, that was the blood of the blood ancestor. Go. Up in the sky, the Blood Tribe mighty figure standing proudly in the center of the blood-colored vortex, flicked his finger, and the blood ancestor's blood flew toward the glass-like statue before finally landing between the man's eyebrows. Rumble. There was another slight tremor, and a special aura began to spread. The pressure from the bloodline began to disappear, and everyone felt their bodies relax. They looked up at the statue of the blood ancestor and found that the statue seemed to be alive. It was exuding a strong vitality. Junior Yi Deng humbly requests the Blood Patriarch to nominate the next holy disciple of the Blood Tribe. Yi Deng bowed. All 36 Blood Tribe mighty figures cut their fingers at the same time and let a drop of their blood float in the air, awaiting the Blood Ancestor's choice. Hundreds of thousands of Blood Tribe experts also watched the scene unfold on the summit of the Divine Mountain with bated breath. Most of the Blood Tribe cultivators had their eyes fixed on Ada and Layden's blood. They wanted to see which of their blood would win the Blood Patriarch's favor. That's right, as long as the Blood Ancestor activated a drop of blood, he would become the next blood race's holy son. As for the previous generation's blood race, holy son, he was the supreme being of the Tao integration stage in the center of the blood-colored vortex. His name was Emperor Mang. It had been 100,000 years since he had been elected as the blood race's holy son. It had been such a long time since he had the chance to hold this ceremony again. One could imagine just how high the status of a holy son was. It was very likely that the current holy disciple would become the next Tao integration stage mighty figure of the Blood Tribe, and the holy disciples would be born from Layden and Ada. The red glass statue moved. Even though it was moving very slowly, it tugged at everyone's heartstrings. Even Emperor Yi Deng was staring at the statue with a nervous expression. The blood ancestor raised the skull and pointed it in a certain direction. Layden drew a sharp intake of breath upon seeing this. Even though he maintained a calm and collected expression on his face, his heart was filled with ecstasy. A hint of disappointment appeared on Ada's face, and she sighed softly. She and Layden stood in different directions in the crowd, but the skull was pointing in Layden's direction. The remaining hundreds of thousands of Blood Tribe members all had different expressions on their faces. Some revealed looks of joy, some sighed inwardly, and some sighed in sorrow. Without a doubt, the dust had settled. A red glow flashed across the skull, and the fresh blood was drawn under the gaze of many blood breeds. Before Layden even had a chance to put on a victorious smile, his eyes and mouth began to slowly widen. The expressions of the hundreds of thousands of Blood Tribe members also congealed on their faces, as if they had seen a ghost. 3 drops of blood slowly flew toward the Blood Ancestor statue before landing in the Blood Ancestor's mouth. A human-like smile of satisfaction appeared on the Blood Ancestor's face, and it even smacked its lips before slowly putting down the skull and reverting back to its original form. Emperor Yi Deng was a little dumbstruck, and Emperor Mang was also a little dumbstruck. Ada's eyes widened as she turned toward a certain direction. She wasn't looking at Layden, but at the 3 people standing behind him. Not only her, but all of the other Blood Tribe members also turned toward a certain direction with incredulity etched on their faces. The 3 Blood Tribe mighty figures who were enjoying the limelight also wore expressions of incredulity and incredulity. These 3 Blood Tribe mighty figures were none other than Cassidy, Merlin, and Tobias. They had thought that they were only here to watch the show, so how had this happened? Layden's breathing accelerated as he looked at the 3 people behind him, and he was unable to maintain his calm any longer. How could it be you? W, what's going on? The 3 of them were only slightly above average among the 36 Blood Tribe mighty figures, and only Tobias had a sliver of a chance of being acknowledged by the Blood Ancestor as a holy disciple. However, the blood of all 3 of them had been absorbed by the Blood Ancestor at the same time. Who could tell him what the hell was going on? A brilliant red light suddenly erupted from Emperor Yi Deng's eyes as he swept his gaze over the area within a radius of over 50 kilometers. but he was unable to detect anything out of the ordinary. An inky black pupil appeared on the back of Emperor Mang's hand, and he stared at the statue of the blood ancestor for a while, but he was still unable to detect anything out of the ordinary. An extremely peculiar silence descended upon the scene. Is there something wrong? After all, 3 drops of blood have been acknowledged by the blood ancestor at the same time. This is something that has never happened in the history of our holy disciple confirmation ceremony, Emperor Deng suddenly said. His words seemed to be directed at Emperor Mang, but at the same time they were also directed at the tens of thousands of blood tribe cultivators. His words expressed his opinion and his attitude. He was unable to accept this result. The holy disciple possessed an enormous amount of power and resources. So how could he allow 3 people to possess them at the same time? I think this might be an accident. We can hold another blood patriarch's holy disciple confirmation ceremony. Emperor Deng finally revealed his true intentions. Cassidy and the others came to their senses, and even though they were enraged, they didn't dare to express it. After all, their status was inferior to Emperor Deng's, so they could only listen to his instructions. The other black-robed blood tribe mighty figures didn't express any particular emotion. At most, they were a little shocked. However, the red-robed blood tribe mighty figures, especially those with cultivation bases higher than Merlin, all began to chime in agreement. A rare glimmer of hope ignited in their hearts. If Merlin, who was only at the pinnacle of the return to void initial stage, could become a holy disciple, then why couldn't they? Perhaps this was an opportunity. A hesitant expression appeared on Emperor and Mang's face. But the blood of the blood ancestor is extremely precious, and it'll be very costly to hold another ceremony. I'll pay for the blood of the blood ancestor. Emperor Deng gritted his teeth and said. Emperor Deng turned to Layden with an expression of encouragement as he spoke. A father's love was as heavy as a mountain. Layden was extremely touched. This was what a good father should be. Your son definitely won't disappoint you. Chapter 636. Emperor and Mang didn't say anything else after hearing Emperor Deng's promise. After all, he was also finding this a little hard to accept. Generally speaking, the blood patriarch would only choose the blood of one blood tribe mighty figure. Why did he choose 3 this time? Furthermore, none of the 3 of them were the most powerful. This didn't make any sense. He repressed the confusion in his heart and carefully extracted a drop of extremely black blood from the black vial. This drop of the blood patriarch's blood was no less valuable than an immortal tool. Boom! The blood exuded a peerless might, and all of the blood tribe, cultivators down below, were struck by the urge to kneel down and kowtow. Emperor and Mang chanted a spell, and the power of laws of heaven and earth appeared to maintain the vitality of the blood patriarch's blood. The drop of blood flew toward the statue of the blood patriarch before falling into his glabella. The 36 blood tribe mighty figures released another drop of blood. The previous drop of blood was nullified. This was also what Emperor Deng had requested. Everything had to be restarted. A mysterious aura rippled out as the blood ancestor moved again, raising the skull in its hand. The 36 blood tribe mighty figures all stared at the blood patriarch with scorching light in their eyes. Their initial intentions had been transformed into indescribable anticipation. Even Merlin had a chance to become a holy disciple, so why couldn't they? There was a chance. In the end, the skull turned toward Layden again. The blood of Cassidy, Merlin, and Tobias trembled violently before flying into the blood patriarch's mouth. The blood patriarch's eyes narrowed with satisfaction as he smacked his lips. The blood really did seem to be delicious. Only the sound of breathing and incredulity could be heard in the surroundings. Emperor Deng's face convulsed slightly. He wanted to say something, but he didn't know what to say. It's still them. It's still them. Layden's vision darkened, and his Tao heart almost crumbled. If it happened once, then it could be explained as a coincidence or an accident. But if it happened twice in a row, then it was AF asterisk king fact. After all, there were 2 blood tribe Tao integration stage mighty figures here, so no one could play any tricks. In other words, there were 3 blood tribe holy disciples this time, and they were all candidates that they had never thought of before. Emperor Yi Deng quickly calmed himself down. Even though there were 10,000 alpacas galloping through his heart, a faint smile still appeared on his face. Let us celebrate the birth of a new blood tribe holy disciple. Tobias, Cassidy, Merlin, congratulations. And Wang waved a hand through the air, and boundless rainbow light enshrouded Cassidy, Merlin, and Tobias. Boundless power of the divine path enveloped their bodies. Dazzling light shot out in all directions, as if they were gods that had descended from the heavens. Yi Deng and Wang had to accept the blood ancestors' choice, even if they had to cry. Congratulations, Saint. Ancestors, bless the blood race. Cheers converged into an ocean, erupting on the peak of the divine mountain. The members of the blood tribe weren't idiots. The blood patriarch had admitted it, and Emperor Yi Deng had spoken. Regardless of his previous identity, the person standing before them was now the most revered, holy disciple of the blood tribe. The 3 of them were already equivalent to blood tribe Tao integration stage mighty figures, so they naturally had to express their sincerity at a time like this. Cheers and celebratory cries erupted into the heavens. A faint smile appeared on the faces of Cassidy, Merlin, and Tobias as everyone looked on. They had only come with the intention to be bystanders, but who would have thought that they would all receive the acknowledgement of the blood patriarch? This was a massive surprise for them. They were well aware of what it meant to become a holy disciple. Not only did it mean a rise in status, but it also meant limitless resources and opportunities. This was an opportunity for them to soar into the heavens. They had already anticipated this outcome a long time ago. It wasn't hard to find a common ground. If the 3 of them were related in any way, it would be because of their master. That was the power of the holy blood. Thus, Enlin's 3 servants became the holy disciples of the blood patriarch under the witness of hundreds of thousands of blood tribe mighty figures. The shocking news of the 3 of them becoming holy disciples at the same time would definitely sweep through the entire dark marshlands and even the entire Tai Chu continent in a very short time. Within a certain blood tribe city in the dark marshlands, 100 students had broken through the city gate. And Lin rode on Debai's back as they flew over the city wall. He slashed his sword through the air, and a black sword projection sliced the massive city gate in half. A dozen or so blood tribe soldiers were also reduced to dust by the sword projection. They had already received news from their scouts that the sole formation stage city, lord of this blood tribe city, had suddenly left the city to participate in an important blood tribe event. It appeared to be the holy disciple ceremony, and he had already left the city. Without their most powerful beings present, they were naturally going to raze this city to the ground. In reality, even if the city lord was present, and Lin and the others would still be able to raze this city to the ground. Battle cries shook heaven and earth as countless spell techniques clashed on the city wall, creating bursts of dazzling light. Perhaps it was because of the commotion, but Tina, who was lying in Enlin's arms, finally woke up. She looked at Enlin with a confused expression on her face. She then looked down at the battle taking place on the ground, upon which a dazed expression appeared on her face. Giant Enlin, where are we? The dark marshlands, Enlin replied with a smile. Tina, why are we here when we wake up? Are we going to find little Ku and the others? No. It's just the end of semester exam. You can go back to sleep if you're tired, and Lin replied in a gentle voice. Tina pursed her lips. You're clearly trying to wake me up through the sounds of battle. You're doing this on purpose. At this moment, the students in their class had already broken through the blood tribe army's defensive line and successfully entered the city. The most powerful general had already been sliced in half by Su Qianyun's moonlight disk. The extremely powerful power of the moon had also severed the Blood Tribe general's life force, and he was completely and utterly dead. The city gate had been broken, and the general had been slain. Even though there were only a small group of students, their combat prowess was extremely terrifying. The Blood Tribe army was quickly routed, and they fled in all directions. The flying sword god swung his long sword through the air, upon which a brilliant light erupted from his immortal sword before splitting into 1,000 streaks of white light that chased after the fleeing Blood Tribe soldiers, completely annihilating them. This was a battle between two races, and the homeroom teacher had to participate in the battle as well, so he couldn't hold back in the slightest. Lu Zhan flew to the central region of the city, where there was a red, crystal-like barrier within which was a churning blood pond. The blood pond was the core of a blood tribe city. When there were no living beings to feed on, the blood tribe relied on the energy within the blood pond to survive. When the blood pond of a city was completely destroyed, it signified the destruction of the city. Dazzling lightning revolved around Lu Zhan's hand before converging to form a gargantuan ball of lightning, which he then hurled toward the red crystal barrier. Boom! Lightning exploded, and the earth tremored violently. The red crystal barrier exploded, and the blood pond within it was also enveloped by boundless lightning before being torn apart and destroyed. After the lightning explosion, the blood pond had been reduced to rubble. All of the students erupted into cheers at the sight of the destruction of the Blood Tribe city. One had to know that destroying a Blood Clan city was already considered a huge achievement. Just this achievement alone was enough for all of the students to receive commendations from the university after the end of semester examinations. A gratified smile appeared on the flying sword god's face, and he was just about to gather all of the students when his voice transmission talisman lit up. He picked up the voice transmission talisman, and his expression suddenly faltered slightly upon hearing the news that was being transmitted. "And Lin, there's new information about the 3 people you're looking for," the flying sword god said in a slow voice. "What is it?" And Lin immediately became excited upon hearing this, and he immediately flew toward the flying sword god. A large part of the reason why he had come here was because of Cassidy's trio. Dubai was also very curious. He had never seen in Lin's 3 servants, and he didn't know who they were. "I heard that they've just become the holy disciples of the Blood Tribe." The flying sword god still hadn't recovered from the shock, and his breathing was a little erratic. That's the holy disciple whose status is comparable to that of a Blood Tribe Tao integration stage, mighty figure. All 3 of them have become holy disciples. And Lin. Chapter 637. Holy Disciple? The holy disciple whose bloodline was acknowledged by the Blood Patriarch? And Lin's mouth gaped open, and he didn't know how to react. He naturally knew what it meant to be a holy disciple. The holy disciple was the most recognized and paramount status in the Blood Tribe. They were prodigies who had been acknowledged by the Blood Patriarch and had the right to lead the Blood Tribe to glory. And Lin really didn't expect Cassidy and the others to become holy disciples. Furthermore, all 3 of them had become holy disciples at once. There were actually some Blood Tribe cultivators who were more powerful than them. So why did it have to be the 3 of them? This was like telling a story. If it weren't for the fact that this was coming from their homeroom teacher, and Lin would have slapped them across the face a long time ago. Wasn't this just making fun of him? Homeroom teacher, why did they become holy disciples? And Lin felt like things weren't as simple as they seemed, and he began to speculate. The flying sword god shook his head. "I'm not sure either. However, after becoming holy disciples, they most likely had to enter some secret place in the Blood Tribe to reap huge benefits. Perhaps it was some kind of inheritance or some other kind of opportunity. In any case, they won't be able to contact us for now." And Lin wasn't disappointed by this. Instead, he was extremely elated. His 3 underlings had become holy disciples of the Blood Tribe. This was an extremely exhilarating feeling. He couldn't help but fantasize about how unifying the dark marshlands was just around the corner. The Blood Tribe city had been completely destroyed, but Enlil and the others didn't stop there. Instead, they began to attack another city. There were a total of 13 Blood Tribe cities within 500 kilometers of Huangquan City, and the Flying Sword God was planning to wipe them all out in one fell swoop. Among these 13 cities, 8 of the city lords have gone to participate in the Blood Tribe Holy Disciple Ceremony, and the most powerful among them is at the half-step soul formation stage. 5 of these cities have soul formation stage city lords. Let's split up into 5 teams and sweep through all of them, the Flying Sword God instructed. Normally, these cities would look after one another, and even if one of them were to be attacked, they would still be able to hold off the students and teachers while waiting for reinforcements from other cities. But now, the lineup of Flying Sword God's class was too strong, and they had the chance to attack all these cities at once. This way, the dozen or so cities would have fewer chances to support each other and escape. Coupled with the lack of top-notch combat power in the cities, this was the perfect opportunity for them to wipe them out in one fell swoop. The Flying Sword God Su Xiaolan, Xianyuan Cheng, Su Qianyin, the clown, and Enlil each led a group of students and began to attack the city. As for Xiaoza, the Flying Sword God knew how terrifying his strength was through certain channels. Because of this, Xiaoza was chosen as a mobile member and was on standby at all times. When the team encountered an emergency, he would be able to rush over in time to provide support. The operation to wipe them all out quickly began, and Lin transformed the chaotic alloy brick into a gigantic black brick and carried the 20 noobs toward the city they were going to attack. The Flying Sword God trusted Enlil very much, so he arranged for the weakest student in the class to be assigned to Enlil. This made Enlil quite depressed. But even the weakest student in the first class had a 9th stage Dao body, which was more powerful than most of the students. Classmate Enlil, what do you want us to do next? A student with a bulky build asked. Should we cheer them on from the side, or should we cheer them on? A pretty girl asked in a more direct manner. And Lin's chest tightened. What's the difference between cheering them on and cheering them on? Same old, you guys are responsible for attacking the city, and I'll be responsible for taking care of the top-notch powerful beings in the city as well as the enemies that want to escape. Without experiencing battle, you won't be able to truly grow. And Lin snapped. Their main objective was to destroy the core blood pool of the Blood Tribe city. However, it was equally important to train the students' combat abilities. They couldn't be left lying down for too long. Otherwise, they would be harmed. The students on the black brick were disappointed upon hearing this. However, they quickly composed themselves, and their faces were filled with fighting spirit. A majestic black city appeared before everyone's eyes. A crimson barrier was faintly discernible around it. The Blood Tribe seemed to have heard the news from the destroyed city and had prepared a defensive spell formation in advance. However, this kind of spell formation was really underestimating Enlin's strength. Enlil activated his divine inspection technique and flicked a realm-piercing nail toward the spell formation, instantly shattering it into pieces. The 20 students landed on the city wall and began attacking the Blood Tribe in a frenzy. Lightning crackled on Enlin's fingertips. Whenever he saw a spirit-nurturing stage soldier, he would toss a lightning manipulation technique over, instantly obliterating the Blood Tribe soldier. Right at this moment, an extremely powerful aura was released from within the city. Enlil tilted his head and looked toward the city. He saw a male with a roiling crimson dragon around his body, bringing with him a raging sea of blood. The terrifying corrosive power melted everything within a radius of 1,000 feet. It was as if a demonic god of destruction had descended upon the world. Humph! You brats who are still wet behind the ears dare to attack my Shuemeng city? You must be tired of living. The male's voice boomed like thunder. Now let me whoosh. A sword strike imbued with the destructive power of golden void, lightning flashed past. It was simply too fast and too powerful. The dazzling golden lightning sword projection instantly tore through the male's domain and tore him in half before he could even introduce himself. The destructive power of Golden Void lightning tore through the two halves of the male's body. The male didn't even have a chance to regenerate before his life force was severed. And Lin sheathed his evil-slaying sword, a disdainful expression on his face. Humph, a mere soul formation initial stage, trash dares to flex in front of me? Debai's body trembled. Big brotherin, you've been so cocky lately. And Lin replied in exasperation, I can't help it. I've been fighting return to void stage mighty figures recently. I can't even be bothered to listen to the lines of a soul formation stage weakling. Debai, can't you just have fun? How can I, who hasn't even reached the half-step soul formation stage, endure this? The Blood Tribe soldiers who were in the midst of battle were scared witless when they saw their city lord being insta-killed. They lost all will to fight and began to flee. Although the students were powerful, there were too few of them. If the Blood Tribe wanted to flee, they couldn't keep everyone here. Tina, I'll leave it to you, and Lin suddenly said. Tina was sitting on Lin's shoulder and was spectating the battle on the city wall with a bored expression. She nodded obediently upon hearing Lin's words. She waved a hand, and over 10,000 specks of white light began to fill the sky like a sea of stars. Then the stars began to fall. The specks of starlight imbued with a holy and purifying power fell upon the Blood Tribe soldiers. Splat, splat, splat. The white specks of light pierced through the bodies of the Blood Tribe soldiers before exploding. In the blink of an eye, over 10,000 Blood Tribe soldiers had perished. Debai's eyes widened as he looked on, and he drew a sharp intake of breath. So the adorable and obedient fairy who referred to herself as his fifth sister was actually this powerful. The students who were engaged in battle were completely dumbstruck by the sight of their enemies being annihilated in an instant. They looked toward Lin's direction to find an extremely beautiful little fairy whose hands were still glowing faintly. Needless to say, that was naturally the fairy's attack. All of the students looked at Lin with complex expressions. What happened to the battle experience they were promised? They hadn't even fought, and the enemies had been annihilated in a single strike. They were being forced to become nobodies. Chapter 638. And Lin also faltered slightly before turning to Tina. I forgot to tell you, don't kill all of the Blood Tribe soldiers. Leave some for the students. Otherwise, they'll be very bored. Oh. Tina nodded obediently before asking with a serious expression, generally speaking, how many should we leave for the students? And Lin faltered slightly before replying, that is indeed a problem. How many monsters should we leave for the students so that they can fight to their heart's content? He looked toward the students on the city wall. How many monsters should I leave for each of you? All the students. Was it really appropriate to ask them this question? Why did it feel so weird? I think 5 should be enough, a male student said hesitantly. Bulsh *T. Are you a man? Only 5? I want to fight 10. A tall and slender female student looked at the male student beside her with a disdainful expression. That's right, 10 is a more reasonable number. 1 against 10 sounds pretty awesome, and it can also be used as a training experience. Another male student chimed in. I also agree to fight 10. And Lin listened to the opinions of all the students and discovered that leaving 10 enemies for each student was the most popular suggestion. As long as the Blood Tribe cultivators of the spirit nurturing stage didn't come, the prodigies of the various sects were quite confident that they could deal with a bunch of Blood Tribe cultivators of the Tao body stage. And Lin nodded with a gratified expression before turning to Tina. Just leave 100 Blood Tribe enemies for each of them. Okay. Tina agreed with a dainty smile. All the students. So, does classmate and Lin have some kind of misunderstanding about fighting against 10 people? They wanted 10, not 10 squared. Hey! After destroying the blood pond in the city, and Lin had all the students stand on the black brick again. Then he leaped onto the brick and flew toward their next destination. He actually didn't have any misunderstandings about fighting 10 enemies. However, fighting 10 enemies was probably the lowest limit for the students, and it wouldn't serve as a training experience at all. Just like his mission of obtaining 10 golden realm essence crystals, that was a piece of cake. Hence, he wanted to increase the quota to 100. Only in this way could it be truly challenging and serve the purpose of training people. He didn't know why, but when he made this decision, he felt pretty good. City of 10,000 swords here. 20,000 vampires were lined up on the city walls. The atmosphere was awe-inspiring and awe-inspiring. In the city lord's mansion, a man in a red robe was sitting on a chair with a displeased expression. A black-robed man, who was also the city lord of this city, was nervously handing tea to the man in front of him. "Dark Poison Lord, are you really going to kill all of the students from the Celestial Court?" The city lord asked nervously. "Humph, you actually tried in vain to eradicate all the cities in the eastern part of my nether poison region. Don't blame me for being ruthless." The Dark Poison Lord was already extremely displeased by the fact that his subordinate, Layden, had failed to become the holy disciple. Now that the Celestial Court was stabbing him in the back, how could he tolerate this? The Blood Tribe had always been fearless beings, so killing those students posed no burden or pressure to him. Even if he incurred the wrath of some mighty figures, he could just hide in the core region of the dark marshlands for a period of time. The city lord smiled fawningly. With the Dark Poison Lord personally taking action, those students are nothing more than worthless chickens. The Dark Poison Lord chuckled coldly with a disdainful expression. "There's a group of people who are quite powerful, and they've already destroyed one of our blood pawns. Furthermore, judging from their route, their next stop should be in our direction. I'll make them the first targets. I'll show them what true power is." The city of 10,000 swords was a large city inhabited by tens of thousands of blood tribe cultivators. Just the soldiers responsible for battle and defense alone numbered at least 20,000, so their combat prowess was quite formidable. However, this defensive spell formation created by 20,000 blood tribe cultivators was suddenly destroyed by a crimson streak of light. A massive black brick descended from the sky, casting a dark shadow over all of the blood tribe cultivators. "Enemy attack! Enemy attack! It's the Celestial Court! Attack!" All of a sudden, battle alarms resounded throughout the entire city. 20 students leaped down from the black brick. All of their auras were extremely powerful, and all types of magic tools and spirit tools glowed brightly as they attacked the blood tribe cultivators on the city wall. In just a single exchange, several dozen blood tribe cultivators were blasted to death. And Lin looked down at the battle on the city wall from above, and he continuously used his lightning manipulation technique to attack the blood tribe cultivators of the spirit nurturing stage who posed a threat to the students. 20 people equals to 2,000 blood tribe cultivators, which means I have to kill 18,000 blood tribe cultivators. Tina's eyes wandered around the city wall as she counted with a serious expression. She ignored the blood tribe residents who hadn't fled from the city. Her only target was the blood tribe cultivators who were wielding weapons. A dazzling light burst forth from her heart lotus ice sword, and she was just about to deliver the final judgment on these blood tribe cultivators. Right at this moment, 2 streaks of crimson light suddenly shot out from within the city. One of the streaks of crimson light was surrounded by over 1,000 flying swords, and they were extremely powerful. The aura of the other streak of crimson light was as vast as the ocean, and there was a boundless black mist enshrouding its body. As soon as it appeared, the entire sky lost all color, and the area within a radius of 5 kilometers was transformed into a living hell. The poisonous mist obscured the sky, and the power of annihilation swept through heaven and earth, as if it were going to plunge all living beings into eternal darkness. All of the students shuddered in fear as they looked up at the streaks of crimson light in the distance with pale faces. Not only are there soul formation stage cultivators, but there are also return to void stage mighty figures here. A female student's legs gave out from under her. This was the first time she had faced the might of a return to void stage mighty figure as an enemy. Don't worry, we still have classmate in Lin here. He's so powerful, so he'll definitely be fine. A male student offered words of consolation. That's right, God and is invincible. Another student offered words of encouragement. The dark poison lord's golden hair danced in the wind behind him, and his crimson eyes were filled with surging, killing intent. Arrogant humans, do you really think you're invincible just because you have some measly power? How dare you invade a city of the dark poison realm? I'm going to make sure you never return. Dabai shuddered as he sensed the terrifying aura radiating from the dark poison lord. Big brother in, hurry up and call Xiaoza over. The enemy is a return to void stage mighty figure. There's no need for that. He's just a return to void initial stage piece of trash. He won't be able to show off for long. And Lin waved his hand nonchalantly and said, Tell Xiaoza to stay on standby in case the other teams encounter any mishaps. Dabai, the dark poison lord turned toward Lin as a cruel smile appeared on his face. Hee, a soul formation intermediate stage human cultivator? You should be the team leader of this team. Why aren't you running away? Have you been scared witless? And Lin also turned toward the dark poison lord, and he licked his lips with a scorching light in his eyes. You're only at the return to void initial stage. Even though you're a little weak, you're still qualified to be my underling. Chapter 639. Underling? The dark poison lord's expression faltered upon hearing this. His hearing was quite good, so he had clearly heard in Lin's words. It was exactly because of this that he was a little dumbstruck. That human cultivator thought he was weak, and he wanted to make him his underling. Master Dark Poison Lord, that human cultivator has most likely gone mad. Let me capture him and bring him to you, personally. The city lord of 10,000 Sword City spoke with an enraged expression. He was a soul formation final stage powerful being, and he immediately wanted to show off to the Dark Poison Lord after seeing Lin, who was only at the soul formation intermediate stage, spout nonsense. There's no need for that. The Dark Poison Lord's eyes flashed with ferocity as he said, I'll do it myself. I'll make him experience what it feels like to wish for death. He stepped forward, and dark winds instantly howled as poisonous mist engulfed the heavens. A terrifying aura engulfed heaven and earth, making the Blood Tribe soldiers and students all wobble on their feet. Master, how should we deal with this? Tina held an immortal tool in her hand as she stood in front of Lin. She was aware of the unique effects of Lin's blood, so she was hoping that Lin would smear his blood onto her sword. She always felt that using a sword that was stained with her master's blood to slash at her enemy would be a particularly thrilling experience. However, Lin disappointed her. Little Na, go and protect the students. As for the Dark Poison Lord, I'll deal with him myself. Lin stretched his body, and his battle intent surged. He was already itching to fight to his heart's content. Ever since he achieved initial success in his body of the war god, he hadn't fought to his heart's content. His battles against Xing Tian and Emperor Ziwei had given him a rough understanding of his own power, and at the same time he had accumulated an extremely vast amount of war god intent. He needed a battle to his heart's content in order to ascertain his true strength. You're just a mere soul formation stage cultivator. How dare you? The Dark Poison Lord felt like he was being looked down upon by Tina and in Lin's calm expression, and he charged toward Lin before launching a fist toward him. The black poisonous mist enshrouding the Dark Poison Lord's fist was like a bottomless maw that could engulf all things, and even the air in its wake began to crackle and groan. If an ordinary soul formation cultivator were to accidentally touch this poisonous mist, they would definitely be corroded to the point that not even their bones would remain. Seeing this, the city lord had already retreated frantically. He looked at Enlin with a hint of pity in his eyes. The dark poison lord was clearly trying to devour the body of the man before him before extracting his consciousness and slowly torturing him. He believed that at that time the man would understand that dying on the spot was also a kind of happiness. Enlin leaped toward the dark poison lord from Debai's back without dodging or evading. His body broke through the sound barrier, and the golden lotus symbol on his forehead flashed as a golden light flashed from his fist, which was imbued with the extremely powerful power of the earth as it crashed down upon the dark poison lord. Rumble. The terrifying collision of energy caused the entire world to rumble. The city lord's eyes widened as he stared in disbelief at the scene before him. He was witnessing the terrifyingly powerful dark poison lord being forced into retreat by a single punch from a soul formation stage cultivator. The golden fist punched a massive hole into the poisonous mist before landing on the dark poison lord's body. A terrifying force instantly exploded forth, knocking the dark poison lord back several hundred meters. The dark poison lord felt as if a gargantuan divine mountain had crashed into his body, and his entire body was in excruciating pain. Who the hell are you? He stared at Enlin in shock, unable to believe that such a terrifying attack had been unleashed by a soul formation stage cultivator. Me? I'm your papa. Enlin raised his head with a disdainful expression as he unleashed his body of the war god and charged toward the dark poison lord again. The dark poison lord was enraged, and he gritted his teeth as he made a grabbing motion toward Enlin. The space within a radius of over a kilometer suddenly congealed. Spatial seal. This was a spatial technique that only returned to void stage mighty figures could unleash. To cultivators who had yet to reach the soul formation stage, this was the most invincible technique. It could imprison all enemies who had yet to comprehend the power of space, thereby reducing them to meat on the chopping block. A ferocious expression appeared on the dark poison lord's face. No matter how powerful the cultivator before him was, it would all be for naught if he had yet to comprehend the power of space. However, a streak of red light suddenly pierced through the spatial seal, shattering all of his illusions. Wings of wind appeared on Enlin's back, and streams of wind revolved around his evil-slaying sword as he abruptly pounced toward the dark poison lord. Enlin's speed was boosted to an extremely terrifying level by the addition of the wind sword, and his body left a white trail in his wake as he flew through the air. The black poisonous mist domain surged toward Enlin, but Enlin showed no signs of resistance as he charged directly toward the poisonous mist. How dare you charge directly into my poisonous mist? You're seeking death. An elated expression appeared on the dark poison lord's face. However, before he had a chance to celebrate, Enlin tore through the poisonous mist completely unscathed and instantly appeared before the dark poison lord. How could this be? The dark poison lord's eyes widened as if he had seen a ghost. Even a return to void initial stage cultivator would be severely wounded if he were to charge into his poisonous mist, let alone a soul formation stage cultivator. However, this cultivator was only at the soul formation intermediate stage, so how could he be completely unscathed? Just as the dark poison lord was in a state of shock, Enlin's evil-slaying sword had already slashed down upon his body. The dark poison lord was a return to void stage super-powerful being, but even he was struggling to keep up with the speed of Enlin's sword. Splat! The dark poison lord hurriedly retreated, but a ghastly gash was still inflicted upon his body by the evil-slaying sword. Blood splattered through the air, and he appeared to be in quite a sorry state. At this moment, the spectating city lord and blood tribe soldiers were completely dumbstruck. What happened to abusing the little kid? Why was the tables being turned now? The dark poison lord was a return to void stage mighty figure, a super powerful being who ruled over an entire territory. How could a powerful being of this caliber be suppressed by a soul formation stage cultivator? Could it be that this dark poison lord was a fake? No, he couldn't be a fake. The city lord shook his head in shock. The dark poison lord was extremely powerful. The power that he could unleash with just a wave of his hand was extremely terrifying. However, the dark poison lord had encountered a soul formation stage cultivator who was even more terrifying than him. That was the truth. However, all of the blood tribe soldiers found this hard to accept. Since when could a soul formation stage cultivator contend against a return to void stage mighty figure? This didn't make any sense at all. In contrast, the 20 students quickly accepted this reality. This is the god, and I know. He's so handsome. A female student exclaimed with stars in her eyes. I already told you that with classmate and Lynn here, we'll definitely be fine. A male student heaved a sigh of relief as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. The biggest reward for this trip is probably witnessing a battle between return to void stage mighty figures. This battle has given me a lot of inspiration, a student said excitedly. Wrong. This isn't a battle between return to void stage mighty figures. It's a battle between soul formation stage mighty figures and return to void stage mighty figures. In the sky above, the dark poison lord finally exploded with rage. He let loose an enraged roar, and the poisonous mist around his body surged forth in a frenzy. You forced me to do this. I did want to use this technique, but now I'm going to give you a taste of my heart of 10,000 poisons. The inky black poisonous mist surged forth in a frenzy, and it was as if the ocean had poured into the world, instantly engulfing the entire city. Tens of thousands of blood tribe cultivators were engulfed by the boundless poisonous mist, and they held in agony before their bodies and souls were destroyed in less than a breath's time. The city lord fled into the distance with all his might, but he was still unable to escape the spreading poisonous mist. His soul formation stage body began to slowly turn black and rot. He wailed in anguish as he frantically unleashed spell techniques to defend himself. However, 10 seconds later, he was still reduced to a puddle of black blood and was completely corroded. Heaven and earth fell into a vast expanse of darkness. Only Tina, who was protecting the 20 students and Dubai, was still like a lantern in the dark night, emitting a faint glow. Chapter 640. The dark poison lord's eyes were crimson, and after devouring tens of thousands of blood tribe cultivators, he was like a fiend celestial that could destroy the world. The poisonous mist engulfed heaven and earth, and not only the lives of the blood tribe cultivators, even the entire city of 10,000 swords was slowly being melted by it. This was a truly apocalyptic spell technique. Who would have thought that you would be able to survive in this poisonous mist? The dark poison lord's eyes pierced through the dense poisonous mist, and a hint of surprise flashed through his eyes as he caught sight of Lin. He extended a hand, and a purer burst of black mist surged toward Lin. And Lin carefully sensed the fearsome power around him, but he didn't unleash any defensive spell techniques. He knew that his body of the war god would be able to handle this kind of power with no issues. He knew roughly what the limits of his own body's defenses were. This was all thanks to his battle with Emperor Ziwei that he had come to understand this profound truth. It was exactly because of this that he knew that he was far from reaching that limit. Boom! An even more fearsome black mist swept toward him, and Lin unleashed his divine sense to its fullest extent, and he was able to ascertain the location of the black mist. Bam! The black shockwave caused the air to twist and warp. His body tore through the air again, and he unleashed his wind spirit and wind sword as he charged toward the dark poison lord. A streak of white light sliced through the black mist before crashing down upon the dark poison lord. However, the dark poison lord's speed suddenly became extraordinarily fast, and his body flashed to Lin's side like a ghost, allowing him to evade the wind sword technique. His claws were as sharp as blades as they slashed toward Lin. Whoosh! His razor-sharp claws tore through the air, leaving a black line in their wake before crashing into Enlin's body. A massive gash instantly appeared on Enlin's clothes. Immediately afterward, his skin came into contact with the sharp claws, and an extremely fearsome force traveled through his body, striking him with an extremely sharp pain. Whoosh, whoosh. The sharp claws transformed into inky black streaks that struck Enlin's body like bolts of lightning, and an extremely sharp screech sounded. Enlin's body flew backward. Faint divine light flowed from the point of contact. Such a terrifying attack was still unable to tear his body apart. The dark poison lord faltered slightly upon seeing this, but he immediately pounced toward Enlin again without any hesitation. In my nether poison world, my speed and strength are greatly enhanced. You are no match for me. The dark poison lord's claws were like swords and sabers, and they slashed through the air in a series of lethal trajectories. At the same time, the poisonous mist around him was like an omnipresent corrosive attack that relentlessly attacked Enlin's body. Enlin unleashed his endless night sword technique and unleashed one extremely domineering sword projection after another. The black sword projection clashed with the dark poison lord's sharp claws, reducing everything within a radius of over a kilometer into rubble. Enlin's sword strikes were unable to keep up with the dark poison lord's attacks, and he was also being completely outclassed in terms of power. Basically, every time an Enlin struck the dark poison lord, his body would be struck 3 times. As a blood tribe return to void stage mighty figure, the dark poison lord possessed extremely powerful regenerative abilities. The wounds inflicted by the evil-slaying sword healed at a rate discernible to the naked eye. Ha ha ha. When it comes to battles of attrition, no one can compare to us blood tribe cultivators. The dark poison lord had the upper hand, and he chortled gleefully as he unleashed even more powerful spell techniques. Within Tina's white barrier of light, all of the students stared at the dense black mist with nervous expressions on their faces. The battle between Enlin and the dark poison lord had already been obscured by the black mist, so they couldn't see what was going on inside. However, the dark poison lord's triumphant laughter traveled clearly into their ears, and it was quite clear that Enlin was already on the back foot. All of the students were completely entranced by Enlin's battle, and many of them were even clenching their fists as their bodies trembled uncontrollably. Senior Tina, why don't you go and help as well? Just get us out of the range of the poison mist. A determined expression appeared on one of the students' faces, as if they had made up their minds. Many of the students immediately chimed in with his words. They didn't want to become Enlin's burden. Now that Enlin was in a difficult situation, they naturally knew what to do. Tina faltered slightly upon hearing this, as if she didn't expect the students to say something like this. She turned her gaze toward the students, and she suddenly felt like all of them were good people, just like Enlin. There's no need for that. I'm afraid that you won't be able to evade the poison mist once it expands. A sweet smile appeared on Tina's face as she said, "Besides, my master won't be defeated so easily. He's extremely powerful." An extremely determined expression appeared on her face as she spoke, as if she was completely convinced that Enlin wouldn't be defeated. That expression even made some die-hard fans lower their heads in shame. That's right, in Tina's heart, Enlin had always been a very reliable and safe person. Therefore, as long as Enlin didn't ask for help, she wouldn't interfere. She believed that Enlin would win. A white sword projection sliced through the boundless black mist before crashing down toward the dark poison lord as if it were a divine weapon capable of dispelling all darkness. Supreme nightless daybreak. The dark poison lord's expression changed drastically. Even though he had set up a spatial poison mist barrier in front of him, it was still sliced in half by that terrifying sword strike. Blood splattered in the air. Everyone saw the figure standing proudly in the void like a god of war. The long sword carried endless white light, becoming the only source of light between heaven and earth. The dark poison lord's body had already been sliced in half, and blood splattered through the air. The boundless poisonous fog that covered the sky was cleaved in half by the daybreak sword slash. Sunlight began to shine on the ruins of the city of 10,000 swords, as if everything had been settled. "He won," some of the students murmured. "As expected of Godin, he really won," some of the female students began to yell with elation. However, before some of the students could even come to their senses, Tina shook her head. "Not yet. His life force is still present." All of the students faltered upon hearing this. When they looked up into the sky again, they discovered that the dark poison lord's body had been drawn by some kind of power, and it had fused together as one again. The dark poison lord's features were a little pale, but a smug smile appeared on his face. "You've lost. Your aura has weakened significantly, so I'm sure you won't be able to unleash that attack a second time, right?" Inky black poison mist enveloped his claws as he spoke, and a ferocious expression appeared on his face. "But I still have a lot of power. Your defenses require energy to maintain, and I'll be able to break through your body sooner or later, seal your consciousness, and torture you with poison for over 10,000 years. And Lin panted heavily as he heaved a forlorn sigh. "You're too weak." "No, you're not weak. You're very powerful. I've never seen a soul formation stage cultivator as powerful as you. It's a pity that your opponent is me." A rare expression of approval and praise appeared on the dark poison lord's face as he continued. "If you kneel down and beg for mercy now and become my slave, I might consider sparing your life." And Lin looked at the dark poison lord with a pitiful expression. "I think you might have misunderstood something. What I meant was that you're too weak, dark poison lord. What happened to flattering each other? Is this how you *King talk?" The veins on the dark poison lord's forehead bulged, and he completely dismissed the idea of taking Lin as his slave. Right now, his only thought was to poison the physical body of the man in front of him, and then let him have a taste of life worse than death, and torture him for 10,000 years. "Furthermore, someone like you wants to take me in as a servant?" And Lin chuckled as if he had been amused. "Do you know that I have 3 slaves who just so happen to be the holy disciples of your blood tribe?"